back for episode 24 of the Auld Triangle. Happy New Year to everybody who's listening along for the Auld Triangle today. 2022 was a massively successful year for Irish fighters on the regional scene and on the international scene. And we're so looking forward to 2023 as well, which is shaping up to be just as big, if not bigger. And as always, I'm joined by my two brothers, Andy Stevenson and Caoilte and Barra. Andy, how are you today, sir?
Hello. We are back for 2023. I'm good. I'm excited. We've got a great episode coming up. We've got a great year ahead of us. And I'm buzzing to be back chatting to you two lads. How are you, Caoilte?
I'm absolutely buzzing. Yeah, no, I've been waiting till we kick this all off again now after such a good year last year. So, the future's bright for the podcast and Irish MMA itself.
Absolutely it is. And as Andy said, we do have a great episode incoming today. Obviously, we're going to talk to the SevereMMA 2022 Amateur of the Year, Keith Keogh from IMMAA, joins us for a little chat. And we're also joined by the newly crowned Team Ireland head coach and Team SBG Tullamore head coach, Kieran Davern as well, who gives us a great interview. And we're looking forward for you guys to listen to it. But first of all, as we said, we're coming into 2023 and we're going to open up the podcast today and talk a little bit about the overall state of Irish mixed martial arts coming into 2023. And we've got lots to discuss. We've got some major promotions that have announced shows in Ireland in 2023. And we've got a big stacked regional domestic level of shows as well coming for you in 2023. It's really, really exciting time, lads. Look at we expressed our excitement time and time again in 2022, and rightly so. We were never stuck for anything to talk about, and it's shaping up, Andy, to be the exact same in 2023. You know, with the big shows that have announced, obviously Bellator coming next month, Cage Warriors set to come in the 29th of April for a big show in the Three Arena. We've got a possible Bellator show again in September if they maintain their plan. And obviously the new announcement of last week, we had PFL who have decided to come and have their European finale and the finals on December 8th in the Three Arena too. It's a lot to look forward to, Andy, isn't there?
Yeah, it's great. Like I sitting down, looking ahead to see what has the year in store for us, both domestically and on, I suppose the world level, because really, like, let's be honest, Ireland is kind of the fight capital of Europe. Dublin has been prioritized by many organizations, and I think that 2023 has really shown it. So it's a very exciting time. I'm hoping to see as many Irish fighters on these cards as possible from as many different gyms. We've got representation from all across the country, which is, I think, really important because there's a lot of gyms out there. Obviously, different promotions, you'll have different fighters and gyms kind of veering towards. They've good relationships. That's all well and good. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. And Caoilte, how do you see these shows playing out? Like,
won't be taking up my hosting duty.
Sorry, I'm trying to. I don't know what I'm doing. I got carried away there.
I let you away with it for the intro.
Right back to you, Ian.
Thanks, Andy. I'm only joking. It's all good. I'd like to kind of focus a little bit of attention, obviously, on the pro scene and those big shows, but maybe just an overview, Caoilte, from yourself on the amateur side of things as well. Obviously, the IMMAFs are coming up. We've got the national championships, and we've got a slew of regional shows to look forward to as well. We've got shows booked up until next August, so it's fantastic to see overall, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, obviously, Worlds are coming around very fast. So Worlds are next month. Wow, they're really coming fast now. Ireland have a team going out to that. Probably going to have one for the Euros. If Bahrain keep up the idea of the Super Cup, I'd love to see. We'd be guaranteed a spot there, so it'd be great to see a team go out. That's kind of, I think that really sums it up. Maybe Four Nations or one or two others, but the youths will obviously be in action as well. I always have to give them a shout out because this amount of work being done there. It's the future of the sport. From a regional perspective, my God, there's so many promotions, and it seems as though every month that there's like a new promotion coming along or being reignited or whatever it may be. And it's being lined up to be probably arguably one of the biggest years in Irish MMA for a regional perspective. Now I think that'll come with pros and cons, as everything really does, but it's going to be I really think this is going to be a really good year, both with the shows up the north and the ones that are putting it on the Republic as well. So I'm excited. Hopefully we see a few more pro fights on these regional cards as well. That's one thing I really want to see this year, not just full of amateur fights.
Yeah, indeed, Andy. Like we're going to see obviously plenty of professional fights on the big shows as well. But yeah, like Caoilte just said, the introduction of a few, and we've seen a couple announced already on UR and stuff like that coming up. But maybe let's talk about maybe the major promotions, Andy, a little bit more coming into 2023. And, from a fighter's perspective, in my opinion, this is fantastic to see so many big shows coming over to the Emerald Isle. And, it provides loads and loads of opportunities for fighters. And it also gives them an opportunity to have a bit of choice, because over the last couple of years, Andy, the choice didn't exist. It was maybe the 1 or 2 Bellator cards a year. Cage Warriors haven't been, it had the Belfast card obviously last year, but they haven't been too forthcoming in bringing any shows to Dublin or anywhere else apart from the Cork show that they had a couple of years back. But the overall arching point maybe is it's great to have these big promotions, and it's great for the fighters who are trying to manifest their professional careers to have these options for the big shows and have a choice in the matter as well and where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. They're amazing opportunities for these fighters, and I'm looking at it here. I'm kind of, the irony is that all of like the good for if you're in Dublin or if you're in the Republic of Ireland, all these shows are coming to Dublin 3 Arena for the big shows, but then that's kind of contrasted with the vast majority of the domestic shows up the north. But yeah, I think it's brilliant. Like obviously we've had Bellator the last number of years. Like they've been very consistent in bringing 2 shows a year. I'm assuming that they will have a September show. I would hope that they will have a September show. So look, you can expect the same, the same fighters that roster who's signed to Bellator to be continuing to fight on those. But now we'll also get to see, the fighters who've been fighting abroad in the UK for the vast majority of their time in Cage Warriors, with the exception of the show in Cork a few years ago and obviously Belfast in June, to be able to fight in front of their hometown crowds. We've seen these amazing events, the atmospheres in the 3 Arena for the Bellator shows. I am interested to see, will there be a difference between the various different promotions? Like, I don't know, for example, if Cage Warriors are going to go with a full 3 Arena or if it'll be a reduced capacity. What will the atmosphere be like? Will there be a difference? Will the public swarm to it like they've done, like the great success of the Bellator shows? Because I think that the promotions, they value Irish fans, they value these shows. The fact that I think PFL as well in December, they're making a big statement by having it the end of year finals for the European series. It's not just a show in Dublin, it's not just a show in Ireland, it's the show at the end of their year for their European series. So that's, there's going to be some big fights on that, and hopefully we get to see more and more Irish fighters snapped up. So we've got Will Fleury, we've got Nathan Kelly, we've got John Mitchell on those. I would assume that they'll probably bolster their Irish talent as well, and their talent from across Europe as well. So very interesting new ground, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more shows. Like there have been other shows that have looked to put shows, I don't know, maybe like a KSW, maybe an Octagon, who knows? Yeah. So like it's a very exciting time for fighters and for fans.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, 100% agree with what you said there, Andy. And look at Caoilte, there's one big name that, we're throwing around major promotions, and there's one big name that hasn't been announced or nothing is going to be announced, and that's the UFC. In your opinion, with everything that has been booked and everything that's been laid out, would you expect to see a UFC show added on top of all the other shows in 2023 in Ireland, or do you feel it might come a little bit later, maybe next year?
Honestly, if you asked me this last year, I would have been like, yeah, definitely. I think we could have had one. Looking at how things are shaping up with the UFC at the moment, and looking at the Irish scene and how talent is being snapped up by, as Andy said, PFL, Bellator, with large majority of them, and other promotions as well, I think that's probably going to be, I'm going to say February, March, April 2024, maybe, I think, where we get a UFC. That way, Ian Gary and the gets the opportunity to start building his record a bit more, and then can put his name into the hat for a headline spot, which he should be in if it's going to be a Dublin card. And that allows all the upcoming talent to be signed to the UFC and then be set up to hold that card in 2024. I think that's probably the best course of action. 3 Arena doesn't exactly have that much slots over the course of the year, be it concerts, and you're adding MMA events into the mix as well, all these promotions. So I think 2024 we may see UFC back, or hopefully see them back, but this year not.
Yeah, Andy, what's your thoughts on that? Would you be along the same lines as Caoilte in regards to a UFC show, maybe not coming this year, and maybe we might see a show next year, maybe perhaps in 2024?
I'd be shocked, to be honest, if there was a UFC in Dublin this year. I think that they sell out before even releasing the lineup for the UK cards. I think why would you bother going anywhere else outside of the UK right now when you've got such a depth of talent coming out of England, of Scotland, of Wales? We don't have that for Irish fighters in the UFC right now. When they came previously, we had fighters that were there that the fans could get behind. We just don't have that right now. But that's not to say that maybe 12, 18 months from now, we could have a whole heap. I'm sure we could chat about that later on. But yeah, I'd be very, very surprised to see a UFC show in Ireland in 2023.
Yeah, and I necessarily agree with what you're saying. But that being said, also they were scheduled to go there in I think June or July of 2020 before the pandemic hit. And at that stage, they would not have had that talent too. But maybe in hindsight, it could have worked out better for them, because I'd imagine next year, and like Andy said, we'll talk about that a little bit more. About maybe the aspirations or possible signings to the UFC a little bit later on in the podcast. But having that talent there is essential. It's what the UFC want to do. They want to kind of sell that local talent. And, they did it so well back in 2015, 2016. It was 2015, I believe, the last time they were back.
2015. Yeah, the Houlihan Smoker one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Or maybe 2016, the one that was the one Houlihan and Smoker in. But 2015, 2016, it was the last time they were back. It's been too long.
Ages ago.
It's been too fucking long. Yeah, that's the kind of custom of it. But maybe to focus a little bit more on the domestic scene, Andy, what's some of your hopes and aspirations maybe about cards and fights? As we're talking about the major promotions, look at some of the domestic shows haven't been very forthcoming in making the announcements and laying out the kind of foundations of what cards they would like to put on. And there's plenty of choice when it comes to picking shows and putting on fights on the domestic scene in Ireland as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. What I really want to see is growth, just more and more growth. I think it's brilliant. The more shows that we see popping up, sometimes they kind of end up on the same date, which isn't ideal. But yeah, look, the more shows, the better. Like there's many shows out there that are providing platforms, opportunities for amateurs, for guys who are just making their pro debuts, who aren't, they're not yet ready for that stage, or not that they're not ready, but they're not at that stage yet when they're fighting on a Cage Warriors, a Bellator, etc. And we need those shows in Ireland. We simply need them. And it's a tough slog. Like if you talk to anyone who's putting on these shows, it's difficult, it's costly, it's oftentimes not sustainable. So I just want to see as many of them succeed as possible, as many opportunities for fighters, and just as many good fights as possible, so that you can get the fans intrigued, and keep the show rolling on.
Just to go back on one of those points, do you think, I know you're saying the more shows, Mary, I'd be in the same mindset, but is there ever a worry that there's, if too many come along at once and you start having the clash of the dates, and then that means if you may not get one, the same quality fighters that you may want in your card? Is there a worry that it becomes oversaturated very quickly if the scene and the talent pool doesn't grow at the same rate, which it is at the moment, but if it keeps going in a certain trend where promotions keep coming along, putting on dates, and then maybe the demand is there for fights, but there's not enough to fill every show, and that becomes an issue in the long run? Do you think there might be an issue with that?
Yeah, like I think that is a risk, but I also think that the more that promotions establish themselves and kind of flesh who they are out there, and what they the type of shows that they put on, there'll kind of just be a pecking order that will come in. Like for example, like a Cage Conflict have been doing great stuff. Like they've been putting on consistent shows, they're putting on pro fights. You kind of know, like it's generally in the Devonish, and people have a familiarity with that, the same way Cage Legacy, what's going to be happening. Or there's show, like for so long there was just a lack of consistency, whereas now you've had a bunch of promotions that are very consistent. The other shows that are popping up, I do think it's great, but they may struggle if they're if they're a week out from another show that's just up the road where other fighters can go. But look, there'll always be, I think there'll just be different levels to the type of events that are put on, really, and the fighters who are on it. And maybe like you see a lot of these like Train Alta kind of matchups and stuff that are put on these shows as well. So they'll probably see kind of crossovers and mismatches where or even like look at say like an Air FC where you had Muay Thai and you had grappling and you had MMA. So I don't know. I think time will tell, really.
It's a difficult kind of a problem that promotions have to face as well, like and that backlog or competition and wanting to get fighters onto your card. I think it'll definitely have more of effect on maybe promotions putting on professional fights more so than amateur fights, because you have a little bit more freedom in your amateur kind of career to kind of take fights at short notice and jump in at the last minute, where wins and losses don't necessarily have as much as an effect on your progression as they would on the professional ranks. But overall, for me, I think it's an issue that's worth talking about. It's an issue that is probably going to exist, but it's a good problem to have. Having too much cards, to be honest, is a good problem, because if we think back a couple of years back, there was very little cards happening altogether. And I'm always of the opinion it's better to have it than want it. And it'll be interesting to see how they combat that. So, big time, it's going to be interesting. I think it's a good problem to have overall. And we talked about a lot of the amateur shows, and look, speaking from yourself, Caoilte, you're obviously getting prepared to move over to the Worlds. From an amateur perspective, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to? Obviously, we're going to talk to Kieran. It's kind of the start of a new era in Irish amateur mixed martial arts, with Kieran taking the helm of the head coach at IMMAF for Team Ireland, over from Andy Ryan. And we get to talk to him a little bit about that later on. So coming into kind of a new era of amateur mixed martial arts in Ireland as well this year in 2023.
Yeah, so with the Irish team, obviously, like, as Kieran tells us in the interview, like, about the coaching staff and everything, it's fantastic setup. The squad sessions, I love the idea of it, and hopefully they can continue, and I imagine they will, given throughout the year. From then the youth perspective, that's still the ground, the grassroots in the country in terms of youth, and the setup is absolutely incredible. That's one thing I can't get over. This past year has really highlighted it. And I think we're going to start seeing this year in particular, we're going to start seeing a lot of people who would have come through the youth ranks and they would have competed, let's say Youth A in the last year or so, start graduating into the kind of junior, senior ranks and competing regionally. And I think that'll change the game a little bit, because you'll see loads of really high level, like, look at Max Ali and Jordan Scully, perfect examples last year. Like, they're almost like breakout stars over the last 2 years. There's a few more than that as well, but I think we're going to have more of that this year, and that's what really excites me from that perspective, where you have these young lads coming through with different looks, and it's going to be it's exciting. And then from a promotional perspective, I'm stacking amateur fights, like putting lads against each other that make good fights. It's not just it's no messing about like you'd see in the UK, to be honest. It's they're usually always competitive, and there's plenty of fights there as well, and lads don't shy away from them. So I'm really excited for this year, kind of what's to be offered. A quick note on that being obviously the fact that we're going to see 5 3-minute rounds being done in Ur.
I was going to bring it up, which is a fantastic move from Decky as well. I loved seeing that as well. What are your thoughts on that personally, Caoilte?
Love it personally, yeah. For title fights, if that's the route you want to go down, I think it's something that should be agreed between fighters beforehand as well. Unless it's rolled out across the entire promotion, I think it's something that need to be agreed. But perfect for lads looking to go pro and get those 5 rounds. Like, I remember when I was younger looking at kickboxing shows. Ian, you probably seen the similar. And I remember seeing, was it like IKF titles or ISK or whatever it may be, and like they wouldn't be 3 rounds, they'd be 5 rounds. It's an amateur fight, it's for a title, but it would be 5 rounds always. And that kind of became and I always associated the 5 rounds with titles. So when I saw it MMA, I was thinking, that's new. So I do like that approach. I think it could be maybe the way forward. I could be wrong with that, but I do like it. It's good preparation, basically. Absolutely
is. Well, like the whole idea of the amateur game, if you wanted to look at it that way, is to try and mold your preparation, try and mold your skill set to kind of be able to fight in the professional ranks. Personally, myself, obviously, when Decky released the news about the 3 or the 5 3-minute rounds, I thought it was 3 5s. I got a bit excited, and I put up a post on Instagram, and Decky was like, no, it's the other way around. And I was like, oh, that's a pity, because personally, I'd love to see the introduction of 5-minute rounds into amateur mixed martial arts, just to kind of get fighters more prepared and better accustomed to the move over to pros. But Andy, it's a start. So, the 5 3-minute rounds is a start. You're getting your 15 minutes inside the cage. You're getting your 2 extra minute breaks as well. And while it's not, exactly like professional, it's definitely a step in the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah, and it seems like it's a trial. Like I saw, I think it was Dennis Frimpong was asking on the Duor page, is this, are you matching or following the lead of the UK scene where they have their AMI titles 5-3s. It seems like it's a trial period, and like I don't know what the right approach is here. Like I think it's it's great for someone who's maybe on the precipice of turning pro to be able to test that gas tank and ensure it's the same volume of minutes rather than it's 5-3s versus 3-5s. I'd be interested to hear what coaches and fighters think. Like I don't know, there's a lot of titles on the line at amateur, and oftentimes you can have, say, like amateurs that are relatively young in their amateur career fighting for a title. So I don't know, maybe if it was for select ones, I don't know what the right answer is, to be honest. I'd be interested to hear what fighters and coaches think.
If it was for title fights, I think it would be a good start, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
At the very least, and I'm all for it, to be honest. I kind of would love to see that introduced. And look, obviously, I think for insurance reasons and regulations reasons, that's why they're choosing to have the 3-minute rounds, I believe, at amateur level. But
I think maybe the 5-3s actually might even be better than the. I know it's you're not preparing for the pro, but like I feel like the point behind amateur is to test out your skill set, right? And it's a trial and error process, essentially.
For some people it is. I mean, people will have different points of amateur. Some people, as we hear Keith will talking ahead in the interview, are using it for, to test out weight cutting and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not disparaging what you're saying at all, Andy. I don't mean to come across that way at all. But for me, if I was looking at it, it's like, how can the 5-minute rounds is a huge thing when you're turning pro. It's like the difference of that extra 2 minutes inside the cage doesn't seem an awful lot, but it is actually massive to try and get accustomed to, in my opinion. But you're dead right in what you're saying. It's different fighters will use different avenues to kind of get themselves prepared. And I guess maybe my overall point is the introduction of the 5-3s, or maybe in future 2 5-minute rounds or something like that. It gives another avenue. As a fighter, that you don't have to take that option if you don't want to, but it's good to have that choice there all the same.
Here's what we do. We do 2 3-minute rounds, and then the last round's 5 minutes.
Let's go Japanese MMA all together. Just one straight 15-minute fight to the death. But yeah, we're definitely not going to be asked on to any regulatory boards now with those kind of ideas. But I think that leads us perfectly into our first interview of the day, guys. We're going to speak to Keith Keogh of CMAC. He was awarded the SevereMMA 2022 Amateur Fighter of the Year, and deservingly so after going 8-1 in his amateur career. So let's hand it over to Caoilte and let's have a chat with Keith.
And joining us as our first guest of the year is the SevereMMA 2022 Amateur Fighter of the Year, Keith Keogh. Keith, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm doing well, lads, and I really appreciate giving me the award and stuff. It's just good to see, obviously, all the hard work. I've been very active this year, and people like yourself, like you are around the game long enough, and see someone like yourself give me the award, it kind of really meant a lot,
It was well deserved anyway. You had this fantastic year. I think it was 7-1 in the end, seriously active, and that's not even, and you probably would have had more if it wasn't for the injury there near the end of the year. Speaking of the injury, actually, how's the healing up? I think it was a broken orbital, was it?
Yeah, it was a fractured orbital. Yeah, it's going well now. I got back sparring. I think it was the first, or just before Christmas there, I just got back sparring. So we're just kind of getting back into it, and then just getting little niggles as well. Obviously, getting back in, I'm kind of going full tilt. So I have 1 or 2 other little things, but not major. But the injury itself seems to be fine. Like, I'm back in full sparring more or less. I was doing good rounds there on Friday night, and yeah, I feel grand. Like, no, it's not hindering me at all. And I feel like now it's just kind of more or less getting back fit. Is the main thing now. Just kind of 3 months off is a long time, getting back fighting fit, kind of keeping that little bit of, getting that sharpness back and stuff like that. But when it comes to the eye now, that's perfect. I'll be ready to go again now, hopefully this year, and hopefully keep active again.
Perfect. And like you're saying there, obviously 3 months off is a long time. Getting back that sharpness, everything, it's a process in itself, especially come back to full sparring. But does that kind of rule you out of the IMMAFs? I know that you were looking at the World Championships as kind of a platform next for you, but is that out of the question now?
Yeah, no, I only actually made the decision there a couple of weeks ago. I kind of had it in my head. I was like, February, lovely. I thought I would have been back a little bit sooner. I thought I was going to be back, to be honest, at the start of December, kind of back sparring and stuff like that, and it just didn't work that way. I thought, like, every time I went into the hospital, they were saying, like, another few weeks. And then it was only really Christmas time where I was getting back into it. And I just thought for the length of time that I was out, I just wasn't ready. I was a bit overweight and stuff like that as well. Like, if you're going off to the IMMAF Caoilte, you've been there, you want to be performing like at your best every day, not having to cut much weight. I was going over there eating 2-3 meals a day and stuff. So I'm a little bit over the weight now. I think it would have been harder to kind of get down the weight. And just not even to get down the weight, but just to maintain it throughout the whole week. And then just the sharpness on top of that as well, as I was saying, I kind of, like, feeling that little bit of sluggishness coming back after obviously after all that time off. I just said to myself, do you know what? And I said it to Alex, and we were about like, no, it's just not a good decision. Like, you're going, like, even at your best, you're going over there and you're fighting some absolute beasts, and you might not come out with a gold medal. So if you're going over there and you're not 100%, there's no point in going over there and doing it at all. And we just kind of said, like, let's pull the plug on it. There's no point of someone else, like probably like Jordan or Ronan, who can go at 66 as well, who are going to go over and be absolute beasts as well and have a chance of getting a gold medal. So there's no point in me going over there not 100% when someone like that is training full tilt and have a chance to get a gold medal for the country. So we said, no, let's just sit this one out.
Seems like a very kind of wise move. It's one of those things, it's an expensive trip over. It's one of those you want to be fully fit for as well. Like, you see guys over there, you want to be there to believe you're world champion, not just kind of still getting back into it. But like, since that's out now, obviously you're going to look at other things. There's plenty of other shows, regionals, and there'd be other competitions throughout the year. But if you look back in, I guess, 2022, and obviously, as we said earlier, you got the Amateur of the Year award for Severe. Just reflecting on that, what were the highlights from your year, and what was that like for you overall? Because like, you kind of just blew up last year with the activity rate and the finishing.
Yeah, so coming into last year, well, I had to fight at the end of 2021. I had to fight on cage conflict, and that was obviously my first fight in 2 years. So that kind of got the ball rolling, like, that summer probably in 2021. Like, a lot of people, like, obviously after COVID and all the shows started kind of coming back, you see a lot of people drop off, and it could have easily happened to me, to be honest. Like, gyms after being closed and stuff like that, and I just kind of said to myself, I remember Alex, I think it was the Clan War show, Alex and Trevor were fighting up there, and we were coming home, and I was just saying to myself, what am I doing? I need to get back fighting. I need to, like, this is what I love. This is my career. Like, so when I got that fight at the end of 2021, I was saying to myself, next year I'm just taking everything. Just give me any fight. Like, as you know, like, it's amateur. Who gives a fuck if you win, lose or draw? You just need to get in and get that experience. So that's the way I approached the year. I was saying to myself, I want to go in and just better myself, just be a better fighter. And then obviously it kicked off with the nationals there in February, and then that just got the ball rolling, and we've had a very successful year. And then highlights, obviously the Europeans was great. The Four Nations was very kind of special as well for me, because that was kind of our first time, my first time, obviously representing the flag and stuff like that. So just going over there and everybody done great. There's a real team spirit and stuff like that. So that would have been the highlight of the year as well. And then just that the whole year was like, there's so many moments. Like, it really is hard to choose from one. Like, we've all, like, the whole club as well has been on such a tear. Alex is proud debut and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's really hard to pick one. The whole year as a whole was just unbelievable, and then we're looking to replicate that now this year as well.
Obviously, one of the big ones I must point out is the that IMMAA choke in the nationals was something to behold. It must be one of the best submissions of the year. Maybe the Trico Plata as well. That was that Jake kind of scored.
That Jake fella, he's a little beast, isn't he?
He's class. Like, the two of you pulling off mad submissions around, but like, even that submission alone, when you're doing that in the nationals, like, you don't see that very often. Is it something you've been drilled before, or it's just kind of just happened?
Lads, I'm real flexible at my back. Obviously, you see that in a lot of my fights, but that thing kind of nearly just came, to be fair. Like, I was practicing Lee's one, the homoplata. He went underneath the arm with it and stuff like that, but I just went across the choke. I just went across the neck with it. But the choke itself was kind of on the spot, was kind of instinctual. But I was practicing kind of like Lee's homoplata and stuff once or twice, not much. Like, I wasn't drilling it. Like, I'd be getting it in roll. I'd be getting it like once or twice in rolls, but that was it. And it just kind of came in the moment. Like, I'd be getting homoplatas and stuff like that. And obviously, when someone sits back on your hip, when I seen Lee kind of going underneath the arm and kind of cranking it, I was like, that's good. But obviously, the neck kind of presented itself, and I just said, yeah, it was on.
It's unreal. And like, the one to just last thing for 2022 I kind of want to touch on is it was you had your first loss in MMA third year, and obviously it was a grueling fight, one of the best fights I've seen in the competition, split decision, tough one to take, and obviously the aftermath of going to the hospital wasn't very easy. But what was it like afterwards? And kind of just, I know you said loss don't matter, it's amateur, but what was it like to actually experience that, and especially in the platform that you're on as well?
Yeah, like I knew, like I always say this, like people get bogged down in the losses, but I say I've had wins where I haven't been happy. Like I've had wins where I'm saying to myself, I could have performed better. But honestly, that was my favourite fight. Like that was a war. Like I loved actually getting in there and just like I thought. Obviously, I won the fight as well at the time, but like I didn't really care about the decision. Like I could have won. I could have gotten the decision and been looking at a silver medal because I wasn't able to fight the next day. I've been saying to myself, I should have gold. So all that did was like literally release a bit of stress and have a loss in my record, which I'm kind of glad for. Like all the lads were saying, like, oh, like you should have won that. We'll be complaining. All I was like who gives a fuck? I'm sitting here with a broken eye socket. I'm not going to be fighting the next day. All I cared about is I perform well, and a lot of my fights I got to show me heart. I've got to show me striking. I've got to show me grappling. I've got to show a lot of things. That fight I got to show me heart. I got to show I can get hit and keep moving forward. So after that fight, I was kind of saying to myself, like, I was glad. That's what I took away from it. I didn't take away a loss. I didn't take anything away from that except for I showed hard in there. I got hit. I got a broken eye socket and I kept moving forward. And that's really what I took from that fight. And the loss on the record, I actually really didn't care about, to be honest. I really enjoyed that fight. And as much as like some people would say it's hard to believe, like it's if you're down in their gym, it's all about the experience. And if you fight well, that's what matters. And I thought I fought well. And the lads thought, once I don't listen to much people except Alex. Alex is telling me I fought well, I did this, I did that. He's my coach. He's telling me what's right and what's wrong. So he was telling me, he's like, I thought you won that fight. You fought well, you fought hard. So after that, I was like, no complaints. I'm after having a great year. I'm after having a great tournament. So that's what I took away from it. Yeah.
Does that mindset of kind of just gathering up the experience, being happy with your performances, does that feed down from Alex? Because obviously he's on record the most active, has the most amateur fights in Irish MMA history. And obviously it never went his way either, but he's picking up experience on the way. But he's been through it all at this point in amateur. Now he's gone to pro, but like, does that kind of mindset feed down towards all of the gym?
Yeah, like it's mental, like his way of approach and stuff. You kind of nearly, like if you're there in the gym every day, like he really doesn't care. Like it's mental. He'd have a fight and he'd say like, oh, I did this, I did that. How can I improve? And that would be it. Like it wouldn't be on. He wouldn't care about the loss. Like a lot of people only care about the losses because they look at like they have friends at home and they think that they're like muck now because they're after losing the fight. They have to go home and tell everybody they lost. Alex doesn't care about any of that. He cares about improving. Like he's improving. He's a real fighter. He's fighting since he was 6-7 years old. So that's all he's ever cared about. He knows that's going to be his, like this is going to be his career. He's going to be a pro. That the slate gets wiped clean. So when you have him in the gym and he comes back after a fight and he's at the losing, especially over in the IMMAF, he's after going over and fighting like Dagestanis and all, where he's getting decision losses and are some absolute beasts, and he's still hanging in there and showing his own, like, you know. And he's coming back and saying, well, I did this right, I did this right, I did this wrong. Here's how we can improve. And he's showing us that, like, we all, like, it's infectious. Like, we all just kind of take that on board, and that's the tone of the gym. Like, we'd be saying, like, even all the younger lads or whoever who's doing novice, we're like, don't be worrying about your wins. Worry about getting your experience. Worry about, the main thing you should be worrying about is getting your experience and not getting injured. Once you're not getting injured, and which Alex has never really got injured in a fight. So, like, he's like, that was the main thing as well. Like, he's never got injured and he's always cared about improving. So we always kind of say that to the other lads coming into the gym. Once you're not getting injured, once you're not taking fights that are like, you know you're going to get like hurt in the fight. That's what it's all about, and it really does rub off us, and that's the way we all approach our fights. Every single person in that gym.
Keith, that sounds like an incredibly mature and a positive way to look at, you know, loss and just dealing with progressing in your career. Something that's kind of stood out to me from seeing you guys from CMAC in the past year. Obviously, you know, you've had success a couple of times yourself and Jordan. Have ended up in the opposite side of the bracket where you've had to kind of step back. But like, it's really impressive to me. Like Alex, you've talked glowingly about him there. He's still, you know, he's an amateur career of his own. He hasn't, he's now a pro. But it seems like it's a real kind of band of brothers atmosphere in the gym, and obviously he's you know, it's not like he's a grizzled veteran who has hung up his gloves and is now moving over to the coaching side. To take on so much responsibility as a young man, he's a fighter, but now also a coach and running the gym. What is the atmosphere in the gym like? Because it does seem like the kind of the Band of Brothers atmosphere from looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, it's mental. Like we're all like so close. It's unbelievable. Like it's literally like a second family. Like you see other people in other gyms saying, "Oh, how close they are." Like I literally don't think you'll get a gym as close as us. And I think as well, boy Alex stepping up and being the head coach in the gym, it's made us, especially like the lads who are there a while, like me, Jordan, Ross, Trevor, stuff like that. We're looking at him and seeing how well he's looking at his own pro career, but then he's looking to improve as a coach as well, which he's doing unbelievably. He's after stepping into a coaching role, and it's like irrespective of him, it just goes up. It's going up and up and up and up. And yeah, like it's mental, like because he's your mate, but he's your mentor as well. So having someone like that there is just like it's you can't buy it. Like you literally can't buy that. You can't buy having that experience. You can't buy someone who was after literally taking it up and cares more about us a lot of the times. Like he's probably didn't go. He probably should have went pro even earlier, but he took a step back probably for a while to make sure we were all okay. So the irrespect for him has gone up, and it just made the gym closer. Like really made everyone so close. And like even like when me, Ross, Jordan, Alex, and all, we all go away to the Euros, to the Four Nations and stuff like that. And literally we just get closer and closer every time. Like, and we call each other out and stuff. Like you want to see our chats, like we'd be ripping each other over, like, you know, like if you're not in training, if you like slagging each other, it's not like like, you know, take a day off. It's like, here, what the fuck are you doing? Get down the gym, stop crying. You know, we call each other out. We're not yes men. Like, you know, we don't tell each other like what do you want to hear. We tell each other what we need to hear, and like it really does pay off. Like you don't have yes men in the gym. We all call each other out and stuff, and it's the vibe in the gym at the minute is just unbelievable. Like, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like does it go both ways in a way? Because obviously you mentioned Alexander has to focus on his career at times too. Like when he is the head coach, do you guys kind of have to almost pitch in the opposite way, where it's like, okay, you're mentoring him at times, you know, when it comes down to his own fighting career?
Yeah, it's very hard. Like he's so smart. He's so smart. But like, yeah, like we would be like Alex is the way he's approaching his career. Like there's not much you can't tell him. He knows he has a head and the shoulders. Like his IQ is through the roof. You know what I mean? But yeah, we all do it. Like everybody, even if it's like, oh, like there's a fight off over this or whatever, and he'd be like, oh, like take your time, or you know, stuff like that. But yeah, we all, like, it doesn't matter who it is, we all give each other advice. Alex, Jordan, Ross, Trev, the whole lot of us, we all call each other out and stuff. It's just that Alex is obviously the most mature, so he does everything. He does a lot more stuff right than what maybe we would do, because he's in the game so much longer, you know. So he's always one step ahead of us, you know. He's great at chess and all. He's strategically minded. So, but if there was something, yeah, we would definitely.
Keith, I can feel your passion for mixed martial arts when you're talking about it. You know, it really comes forth. Where does the passion come from? Did you always want to be a fighter since you were a younger man? What was your initial kind of introduction into mixed martial arts or combat sports?
Yeah, like I think like most lads, like growing up in Ireland, you know, always yourself, like football was their thing, you know. And then like I think I touched on it before, like I joined one day to lose weight, to be honest. I was about 13. I think I was 13, yeah, and I just joined to lose weight. I was doing a little bit of kickboxing, just in the community centre, like a once a week kind of thing. And a few lads saying there's an MMA gym up the road, and we went down, and like we'd be training a little bit, but not too much. And then I remember it was the summertime, so I started in the October, kind of hit the summertime, and we were training like twice a day. We were all off skill, training twice a day, like really like putting in the work. And then my first fight was in the January after that. And we had a novice fight out with Team Rhino. That was like one of my first novice competitions. It's actually 7 years to the day. I think 7 years this weekend was my first novice fight. And after that, like that winning feeling, that like you'll never find something as real. Like just getting in there and like the nerves like beforehand, and like I love it. Like everything, it's the most real feeling I get. Two people going in there trying to they not hurt each other, but like trying to put each other away, you know, whether it's submission or whether it's on the feet. And it's just when you come out there, that adrenaline buzz you get, it's like, oh my god, like it's addictive. Like, and don't get me wrong, it's hard. Like anybody that tells you it's not hard it's the hardest part in the world, like dieting, staying disciplined while all your mates are out there and stuff. But that's why that comes back to the gym. All of us calling each other out and stuff. We have to remind each other why we're doing this. Like, you're choosing to do this. You know, that Mikey Messi would just always say, like, remember when times are hard, you're choosing to do this. You're choosing to put in the work. You're choosing to do the weight cuts because you want something more. And obviously we all love the sport, but you're not always 100% motivated, but we're always 100% disciplined, and that's what makes it a lot easier. But the love of the sport, it's just getting in there. It's just something you have to do. It's just that raw feeling, you know, that just you have to do it.
Yeah, you can really tell. That's what I said. Like, because strangely enough, not all fighters would have the love or the passion. Like, but nerves, and obviously when you're going in to fight as well, it's a pretty daunting kind of a thing. But the timeline you kind of talked about there kind of aligned up with the first wave of Irish mixed martial arts kind of stars that came through and got to the UFC, the likes of the Caoilte Pendreds and the Connors and the Paddy Hoolahans. That must have been a big kind of influence for you, or in and around that time, to kind of get up and going and start doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I remember the first time I did kickboxing, like, oh, well, not the first time, but I was into kickboxing a little bit, and I remember literally going into the gym on a Friday, and someone, like, the McGregor, the 60 G's baby, like, we heard that we were in the community centre in the hall, and my old kickbox coach, I remember being like, oh, did you hear, like, Conor, like, 60 G's baby, you know, stuff like that. And then that's kind of obviously what kind of kicked me smart. Like, I used to play UFC before that, like your Brock Lesnar, your Anderson Silvas and stuff like that, like, you know. But when I remember him saying that to me about 60 J's and all, and we were all talking about it, that kind of rise and that trajectory of Irish MMA at the time was unbelievable. It was like the best things ever. Like UFC Dublin, Paddy winning, McGregor winning, like Caoilte and all. That was unbelievable at the time. And then even like as like thing as it sounds, like even like when Alex was coming up, remember when he fought like Lee Hammond and stuff like that, like as it being like the biggest amateur Irish fight in history and stuff, it was in the paper and all stuff like that. Was just, the sport was just growing and growing and growing, and like the love of it, the love for the sport just kept growing along with that as well, you know.
100%.
You know, when you look at your future in mixed martial arts, what do you see as your path? Like, what are your aspirations for? You're still very, very early. You're still an amateur.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about
UFC? Like, without UFC, like obviously, like you have other promotions like now knocking around, like PFL and stuff like that, and hopefully by the time I'm getting to that stage, there'll be shows that where you can basically have a pro career without having to work another job and stuff like that. So that's why when you see these PFLs, your Bellators, your UFC, your One Championships, another great show, that's where I see myself. But obviously, like UFC champion, like I don't want to like just put in like the work just for the sake of it and then just go nowhere. Like, I want to know, like, if I do it, like, I want to know I've either failed or succeeded. And obviously I know I can succeed. I think I really can. I have a great team around me where I think I can succeed, but I really don't want to, you know, just be doing this for the sake of it. I want to see how far I can get. I want to go all the way. And it's not even that I just even want to go all the way. I just love doing it. I love the process. I love actually training. I love fighting. I don't want to just be saying, all right, I want to get here, be UFC champion and stop. I love fighting. I love the sport. So getting there would just be a bonus, which I think I will get there. But just fighting and doing this sport is the career I'll have, and I'll be doing it hopefully till I'm 40 or so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be, we'd obviously love to see that. We'd love to see you in the UFC in time. What do you need to do over the next number of years to make that a reality?
Keep improving, you know. I think this year was probably a little bit of a wake up, like, you know, like, I'm great with training and stuff like that, and the only thing for me is my diet, like, you know, just kind of anything you can improve on to make you a better fighter. Like, what is this going to do to improve me? So I think I'm getting better at that, seeing little stuff in camp, in training and outside of training in everyday life. So I think I'm still learning. I'm still seeing what can make me a better fighter inside and outside. And I think just keep going what I'm doing. I think just keep doing what I'm doing. You know, just maybe like, yeah, I think just doing what I'm doing. I think I'm on the right path. Like, you know, I think like there's always one star or one person out of every gym that makes that gym big. Like, you know what I mean? Everywhere, everything has to start with something. Everything has to start with something, you know what I mean? SBG started with McGregor, and I think CMAC is going to blow up with me, Alex Shorter and all in the next few years. So that'll be in my gym, and I think just staying with them lads, training every single day, twice a day, 3 times a day, and just keep going on this path that we're going on. And I think that's going to be the way that we're going to get to the UFC. I think like we're all homegrown, we're all from Blanchardstown, we're all mates, we all live near each other, and I think that'll be even unbelievable that so many people from one area can do it, and I think we're going to do it.
You're on about the path to kind of that you're planning on staying on, but in terms of this coming year now, I know the Worlds is off the cards, and but what's the plan for this year? Do you want to try and beat the amount of fights that you did last year, which was a crazy amount alone, or what are you thinking?
To be honest, I probably won't have as many this year. The way I'm kind of approaching this year, I do kind of want to go pro by the end of the year. I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to rush it. Like if it comes to the end of the year, and I feel like I'm not ready, I'm not going to do it. Like I don't feel like you should give yourself time limits. I don't feel like you should be saying, well, you're this age, you have this many fights, just go and do it. Now I feel like you should go when you're ready. I feel like I am getting ready. So I feel like at the end of the year, I feel like I could go pro. But what I want to do is I'm going to obviously be a 61 day before. I want to practice a few more, maybe 61 day before weight cuts. That's kind of what I want to do. I want to there's a few shows in England that I want to get onto, and I'm trying to get getting obviously matched on stuff like that. So that would be ideal. Like when I fought Carl McConway, I didn't even do a bat. I water loaded and I made weight. Like I woke up on the way. I was fighting 66 day before, and I was waking up like 2 kilos under. So when I fought Carl, I was still on that weight, didn't even need to do a bat, didn't need to do a sauna. So I want to actually practice, like maybe even putting a bit of muscle mass on and doing the weight cuts right, so that for when I go pro, everything is correct. You know, like get all this experience, all the stupid shit out at amateur, all the bad, obviously, well, we don't do bad big weight cuts, but anything that we can improve on in the weight cuts, in the training, we get it out at amateur, and then the minute we go pro, we can just tip off from there. There's no point in taking like easy fights. I think we can just be ready. We can, if you're that good, you'll just beat everybody anyway. So that's what we're doing at amateur. And so hopefully another 2 or 3 fights, maybe 61 day before this year, and then pro at the end of the year would be something I'd like to go for.
Well, we'd be more than happy to see a pro at some stage if it be at the end of the year or somewhere down the line. But you've got a lot of fights coming. Well, a few fights coming up in the meantime that that'd be good to see, especially if you get to go to the UK. It's a fairly deep pool of talent over there. But before we let you go,
sorry, Caoilte, are you looking at the nationals this year at all, Keith, or before?
Probably not. My plan was to do obviously the Worlds. So I was coming into this year approach, and I was like Worlds and then 61 day before, because I felt like obviously getting a few fights in at the start of the year would have been perfect. But obviously that's not going that way. Shit happens. It is what it is. But I just felt like if I was doing the nationals, I'd want to do the nationals to go and then do the Europeans. But it's the practicing the weight cuts for me now I want to do, because I could walk around it that way now. But I want to. That's what I really want to get down. I feel like my skills are good there now, but it's really now practicing about the weight cuts and getting all the other type of stuff right, that you don't see. So that's probably going to be the plan. Yeah, I probably won't do the nationals.
Keith, we really appreciate all the time you've given us. We just have one more before you head off. Look, we know you're a suffering Liverpool fan, and it's a bit of a tough time at the moment. How hard is it watching it, Liverpool at the moment?
Oh, lads, I didn't even watch it. That's being honest. I walked out, said, "Get away from me." It's tough out there. They'd be knocking my phone off. You know, all you United supporters and all, they'd be texting me because you're doing so well. So the phone goes on do not disturb at the minute, to be honest, and I nearly got hopped off the wall maybe yesterday.
Are you like me now? It's not the result of the match that really bothers you. It's all the shit talk that comes after the fact. That's the worst thing.
Yeah, it's a bit about. But the shit talk definitely makes it a lot worse. You know, I have loud United fans, they'll be bleeding ringing me and all. To be fair, swings and roundabouts. When we beat us 5-0 last year, we was ringing every single one of them. Didn't get an answer. So, you know, now I'm getting it back in the air. So, you know,
no one remembers that at all last year, but it's all about what's happening this year.
I throw it out there every now and again now when they say it to me. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time with us today, Keith. It was really a pleasure to get to chat to you today, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again down the line. And all the best for 2023.
No more broken eye sockets as well this year.
Yeah, no, that's it. That right hand is going up and training a lot more. You know, I'm practicing that. You know.
Thanks a million for the time, Keith.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Lovely stuff. Great to hear from Keith there. Great conversation, and very excited to see his progression going into 2023. Let's talk about some upcoming fights, shall we, guys? We're going to talk about the Premier FC card, which is happening a little bit later on in a couple of weeks on January 27th or 28th, I believe.
27th, Friday the 27th of January in the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel. So Premier FC 5 with the first pro fight in Tipperary.
Absolutely. Ever. Yeah. Very first fight, pro fight in Tipperary. It's great to see Nikola Ivanovic versus Solomon King Simon from Team Rhino Waterford, who is making his professional debut. Look at a little bit of chit chat online about this and the matchup as well. Caoilte, share me your thoughts on this matchup. For Solomon Simon coming in. Obviously, we've talked about Solomon time and time again on this prospect, one of the leading amateurs in Ireland right now. It's great to see him coming in there and kind of making his professional debut and early in the year as well.
He's a Waterford man too, so can't beat it. Yeah, look, to be honest, I've seen one or two that may not have been exactly too pleased with this fight per se, but honestly, I don't really mind. I think it's a fine debut. Like, it's very easy to look at Nicola's record, see the 0-5 and think, okay, this is just a squash match. Now, at the same time, I do expect Solomon to win. I expect him to win in a fairly decent fashion, but like Nicola, he's still dangerous. That's what you got to keep in mind. He's not a can that is brought over from the UK. I pick on the UK quite a lot for stuff like that, but just to use it for comparison, that in the UK they have someone that literally just take a dive. Nicola's not this type of guy. He comes in, he's there to fight, he's there to put a test you, and he'll shoot. Like, he broke Lee Hammond's nose. There's bits like that, and he's willing to fight and he wants to fight. That's the difference. He wants to fight and he wants to win. He's not going in there just to accept a loss. He wants to fight. That's the thing. He sees himself as a professional athlete. So he needs. Who else is going to fight him? He needs to get fights. You're not going to have guys who are with loads of losing records fighting each other either. So Nicola needs fights, and so do these debuting guys. It's a fine debut.
Like, I completely understand the fight. Look, from my perspective is that, I'm expecting Solomon to go in there and get the win. Will he learn lessons? We won't know until after the fight. Like, anyone would say ahead of the Lee Hammond fight against Nicola that, this is going to be a squash match. This is going to be, what's the point in having this fight? Well, hindsight is a great thing, like I said, and the point of having that fight was that Lee found himself in a situation that he hadn't found himself in there before. So if you're looking to take certain aspects away from a fight like that, is like Nicola can kind of prove and cause some issues in there for Solomon with the experience going in there pro. But Lee will probably tell you himself is that, and he spoke to you, Andy, after the fight about having to deal with that broken nose issue. And, he will have learned something from that fight and how to deal with that scenario if it does happen again down the line. But what's your overall thoughts on the matchup and Solomon's debut in general? Are you excited to see him make his professional debut?
Yeah, and I mean, just to jump back to the Hammond one, I think it's also important to call it that was, a very, very late notice replacement. It wasn't the original opponent that was scheduled. And yeah, look, what I'll do, we're at the start of 2023, I will hold my hands up. I've been very, very critical for the last number of years, and it's not just with Irish fighters. It's when Mohamed Bakayev was coming up when he was fighting Hayden Sheridan or Sheriff or whatever. I've always been critical of this stuff, and I've listened to other people speak about. I heard Liam Shannon and Pat McAllister chatting about this not too long ago, where it's. I'm going to try cut people some slack. I think for the first couple of fights for 2023. There is a difference, massive difference, as Caoilte said, between the likes of what's your man, Reece Street, or so. Yeah, there's a
difference between a jobber and yeah. I would not class Nikola Ivanovic as a jobber going into this fight at all.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it is. Look, from hearing from promoters as well, and it seems to be quite difficult to match lads at the moment. Like, I know Premier tried to get a number of different other opponents for Solomon, but they couldn't get someone to take it. And I imagine it was probably the same, looking back now and in retrospect, we were critical of the cage conflict once previously, it was probably similar up there where they probably couldn't get other people to take fights. So coming in here, and I also think there's a difference between, now again, Lee's was short notice, so it's kind of irrelevant to an extent, but had Lee originally been matched up against Ivanovic from the get-go, right? Lee's a former IMMAF world champion. Lee's what at the time 4-5-0 in his pro career. There's a difference between a guy coming in his pro debut. Solomon Simon hasn't fought 5-minute rounds before, to the best of my knowledge, anyway. He hasn't won the worlds at IMMAFs. He's had wins and losses, trading a lot of wins and losses in his amateur career. So he's transitioned to pro. It's probably not the most ideal fight that you want to see, but at the end of the day, Premier FC are putting on a pro show, or a pro. They're progressing as a promotion. They're putting on a pro fight for the first time, first pro fight in Tipperary. I do expect Solomon to go in and get the win, but as you said, Ivanovic he's not going to roll over. He's going to probably give him some tests. It'll probably I think he'll probably give him a tough fight. Or for I don't know if he'll give him a tough fight, but he'll give him a fight. And yeah, it is what it is, really.
Yeah, it's like an issue that exists throughout MMA. It doesn't just exist in Ireland, as Caoilte just said. It exists over in the UK. And while I was actually talking to Sean O'Bannon recently, and I thought she spoke well about it. Definitely in her situation as a single mother, as she stated, she has to put bread on the table. She has to provide for her family. And that's the situation that we don't talk about enough when it comes to professional fighters coming in, whereas that this is their living. This is the only form of income that they're making right now. And we even see the likes of Andreas Binder and other fighters who are actually working 2 jobs along with trying to be a professional as well, to try and make ends meet. And ideally, you like to fly guys in and stuff like that, but that also costs money as well. So it's the predicament where, acknowledgement is important, and we'll always acknowledge what it is, but also an understanding of the situation as well, I feel, is important. So we're all in the same boat when it comes to them. We've all had our criticisms, but I think it's important kind of to have that understanding as well. But I think the main point of this conversation is the fact that we are going to see Solomon Simon make his debut, and he's had a fantastic amateur career, and I'm very excited to see how far he goes, Caoilte, in his professional career. How far do you think he can go?
Sky's the limit when you turn pro, really. So all depends on how he adjusts to the 5-minute rounds, who he faces, the route he goes down. Does he go down the Cage Warriors route? Does he go one fight deals in different contract or in different promotions and bounces around, let's say Europe or around the world? Does he go to a Combache? It just all depends on the route. Because he's very good. His wrestling's quite strong. His striking's just sublime. It's so good to watch. So yeah, he's got a lot of potential. You never know where he could go, and that's the kind of the beauty when these guys turn pro. They could be completely different to how they were as amateur. Pro could suit them a lot better, and what we may have thought of someone as an amateur may not reflect how they are as a pro. A lot of the time it does, but some people, pro suits better than amateur. 5-minute rounds where they've longer time to implement their game plan, it makes a big difference. So I think it will suit him, the 5-minute rounds, and I think he could do pretty well. I couldn't tell you an exact.
It's hard to say, right?
It's hard to say. It was a bit of an unfair.
The unknown, really.
Yeah, it was a bit of an unfair question, but it's a guy that we have been keeping an eye on for quite some time. Andy, when you take a look down at the rest of the card, is there any more fights on that card? And we'll break that down fully after it happens on the next episode of the Auld Triangle. Obviously enough. Is there any other fights or fighters that stand out to you that you're looking forward to seeing on the Premier card?
Yeah, I mean, I always like watching Armin Herzog from Sandez is facing Kevin Keogh. I don't know too much about Kevin Keogh, I'll be honest, but I always like watching Armin Herzog fight. He's got a good striking style. He's fun to watch. Dan O'Sullivan, I see, is fighting Conor Nolan. Dean O'Driscoll fighting Declan Ryan. With these Premier shows, oftentimes I'm less familiar with some of these guys as we go down, so I'm kind of interested to learn more about these guys who I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with a bunch of these fighters. One that the 2 names that do stick out though, kind of further down on the prelims, is Xavier Rooney versus Damien McGuigan. I think that could be a good fight. And I see Marco Sardillo, he's a decent fighter as well. But yeah, looking at a lot of these, I don't know some of these fighters, so I'm gonna get acquainted with them for the first time for a lot of them.
Absolutely, as am I as well. And, you know, just a shout out to the Premier lads as well. Had a fantastic 2022 and they are starting 2023, getting the ball rolling quickly, getting those shows in. So it's going to be exciting to see how they progress as a promotion too.
And just one note as well. I saw they put up a post today about I think it was Niall's cousin, one of their main sponsors for it, he's been in hospital and has been gone through a really, really rough time at the moment. And they put a post about, you know, that he's kind of making a full recovery. I think he was in I hope I haven't got this wrong. I think he was in a car accident. But yeah, so it seems like he's making a recovery, which is great to hear. It's horrible to hear, you know, someone who's contributing and having a big impact on trying to push MMA forward in Ireland and playing a contributing role, going through a tough time, and it sounds like those guys were too. So just thoughts are with them as well at this time, because I'm sure it's a horrific time to be going through.
Very well said. Speaking of people who have had an impact on the Irish scene, it kind of leads us perfectly towards our next interview, and that's with Kieran Davern, who has been recently appointed the Team Ireland head coach. Obviously, is also is the head coach for SPG Tullamore as well. And we decided to have Kieran on actually just to talk a little bit about his appointment as head coach at Team Ireland, and also just a look ahead into the Worlds, which happen next month, which we will cover in great detail also on the next Auld Triangle. So I'm going to toss it over to myself to introduce Kieran Davern. Now we'd like to welcome to the podcast Mr. Kieran Davern, head coach of SPG Tullamore and the new head coach of Team Ireland for the IMMAFs as well. Kieran, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting to the three.
Yeah, obviously, look, we had a chat ourselves, Kieran, last year about just everything in SPG Tullamore and stuff, and we'll bring that in later into the conversation. But first of all, I wanted to say congratulations on being selected as the head coach for Team Ireland. It must mean an awful lot for you to be selected. How happy were you to kind of get the role and the responsibility of that?
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a huge honor for to be asked to do it, and that, and obviously it's a big responsibility and everything else. But I'm very, very happy. But I suppose that's the first bit. You know, the biggest, I suppose the biggest part now is doing what we're going to do for the next 12 months. So there's one thing like being the coach, but then there's things that go on in the background that that you have to do to make sure that we better last year. So that's my goal this year, is to make sure we have the best year that the Irish team has ever had at the IMMAF. So you can hold me on record saying that. Like, I have the medal count wrote down of the whole lot. So that's my goal anyway, is to make sure we do better than last year. And if we're doing that, we do that every year, then,
How many medals was it last year, Kieran?
8 medals last year, including the Europeans and the World Cup and that. So I have all
I just wanted to note that down just to make sure.
Yeah, 8 medals. So the plan is to get better than 8 this year, and improve on certain things and that. So obviously it's a huge honor to be asked, and I suppose the Irish team wouldn't be where it is, without the likes of Andy Ryan, and you have Marlene and Liam, and everyone else in the background. I'm sure I'm missing loads of people. There's loads of people that played a part in it, but it's like you stand on the shoulders of greats that have done it before you. So that's my plan. Andy has kind of paved the way, and he's passed over the torch to me and asked me to do it. So I'm gonna do the best I can and make sure it's the best year that we've ever had.
Absolutely. Obviously Andy did a fantastic job in getting things, and they've had such a great successful last couple of years as well, and I'm sure we will going forward too. Is there any advice or any chat that you had with Andy maybe when he was passing over that torch to you? Did he give you any advice?
There's probably some stuff I can talk about and some I can't. Yeah, Andy now, but no, Andy, to be honest with you, like, me and Andy are good friends, as in, like, I've known him for years, and we've gone really well together, and we've been away at the IMMAF, so I felt that, like, the two of us worked really well with each other. I'm sure some of you might have known this, but, like, say, this time last year, I was over cornering at the Worlds in Abu Dhabi, and Andy was sick. I think he might have had COVID or something like that, and he couldn't coach Nadine. So he messaged me and asked me would I look after some of the Team Rhino fighters along with the Team Rhino coaches, and I said I would. And so Nadine was one of the people that I had to kind of look after, and that, as in help coach her out and stuff like that. And so long story short, she had a couple of wins, and I kind of just did her corner, say, in the tournament, did the best I could with her. And Andy was able to travel, or say the day before the final. So he arrived in Abu Dhabi the day of the final. And I basically said to him, do you want to jump in? And it's a final, it's prestigious, for any club coach or even that international or national coach. It's a huge achievement, especially if it's one of your own fighters now. And like Andy being the person he is, he was like, I don't want to disrupt what you've done all week. You've worked great together. And Jerry was in the corner as well from Team Home, and he said, I don't want to disrupt that. And he said, I'd rather you be in the corner. And that, like, for someone to do that is huge. There's not too many people that would do that, you know what I mean? So that speaks volumes of the character or type of person that Andy is,
Yeah, sir. It's not surprising to hear that altogether at all. So look at you're in charge now. You're getting ready for the Worlds coming up next month as well. What's the kind of message that or the mentality that you're trying to instill into the team ahead of the competition, and what are the preparations going to look like for Team Ireland before you head on over there to Serbia?
Yeah. So we have our first squad session this weekend. We're going to do 2 squad sessions before. I suppose it's a good time to announce, like, say, the assistant head coach and the other coaches on the team. So say the coach that will be working beside me, or right hand man, they're working together, is Paul Redmond. So Paul Redmond's, he's unreal, and I feel that's going to be a massive asset to the team. And Alexander O'Sullivan, which is unreal. He's had the most amateur fights in Ireland, 30 or close to 30. And we've Liam O'Griffin as the manager. And to be honest with you, none of this happens without Liam. Liam's unreal. Like, he does all the admin stuff, and he's, he registers the lads, and he gets the hotels sorted and everything else. We'd probably just arrive in Serbia if it wasn't for Liam, and just rock up in the street and just try fighting a B&B. But without him, like, it wouldn't be where it is, So that's the team. So like so it's not only me, it's Paul Redmond and Alexander O'Sullivan along with Liam O'Griffin for as team manager. So I feel that, like, that's a class coaching panel, and we obviously want to build to that, but we don't want to build to it in the way that we just throw in loads of random coaches. The message this year, like, I put a text into the group last week, kind of say congratulating the lads and everything else, and talking about the stuff that we want to do with them at the squad session. So there's going to be technical stuff, and working on helping them work on different areas of their games. Our goal is to work, like, say, along with the fighters and with their club coaches. We don't want to pull against their grain, or we don't want to work against the club coaches. Like, we want everyone to kind of to work together, and our goal is to make the lads as good as possible and as prepared as possible for an IMMAF tournament. And obviously the bulk of the training is going to be done in their gyms, and they're obviously trained by their team coaches. But we feel that we can add to it, whether that's through the grappling aspect, or maybe it's through, like, say, it could be the striking side with the likes of, like, say, Alexander or Paul Redmond, or any area really. But I suppose the biggest message this year for the Irish team is professionalism. And the biggest thing that I want to do outside of, like, say, technical stuff is build a culture on the team. There's no single person bigger than the team. The team is as strong as each individual, and each individual is as strong as the team. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's the same with any top team. You look at the All Blacks, or any team who's ever done anything great. There's no one bigger than the team. So that's my main goal this year, is to improve that culture on the team, and make it as professional as possible. And small down to small things, like, say, everyone wearing tracksuits down, the Irish tracksuits down for team breakfast, supporting each other in the stands when one person's fighting, and just building a solid unit. And it's like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I feel that each tournament and each week and each month we'll just get a little bit better, and then that will compound into bigger results over time. So that's kind of the goal.
100%. And look at yourself and Redzer and the rest of the coaches as well. You have to kind of combat training different styles in fighters, training different personalities. And also, you mentioned, a lot of the preparation is going to be done in their own clubs.
Yeah.
From a coaching perspective, when it comes to game plans, to tactics and everything like that, are kind of nurturing all of those different kind of fighting styles and personalities, in your opinion, what do you feel is the most important thing to try and get the most out of every individual?
As in, like, from a technical standpoint, or anywhere?
Technical mentality, anything overall. What would be the most important in your opinion?
I suppose the biggest thing is mental is huge. You know what I mean? I feel that like over the years, some people have just showed up to an IMMAF tournament for the sake of just saying that they've represented their country. Whereas if that was like said, we're still in early stages of development. Like say, if that was like the national boxing team, you can't just show up and fight the Europeans out in Azerbaijan or wherever the World Championships or anything like that. So I feel there was a little bit of that. So I want people that like. I think the people that are on the team should be people that honestly believe that they can medal at the IMMAF Euros or Worlds. We're looking for the best amateurs in the country, and I feel mentality is number one. So that's obviously something that you're not going to fix in one training session. You might be able to maybe help them in like think in a certain way. Maybe that's through like experience from say like the likes of Paul Redman, who's fought on the likes of UFC and Bellator, and that. I'm sure he'll be great in that area. Alexander O'Sullivan as well, that's had like 30 amateur fights and who's an excellent coach himself in his own right. He's done a brilliant job at CMAC, and the lads at SBG Tullamore have a great relationship with CMAC. We kind of do a lot of cross training and that, and so I feel that like there's a lot that we can help with, like say maybe mental. I think like say technically we can as well. Whether it comes through like grapple, it's a grappling heavy tournament. So I feel like adding maybe more of a modern approach to grappling. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably where I feel that I might be able to help out, say with the MMA side of things. Liam O'Griffin, say one of the squad sessions this Sunday, Liam O'Griffin has put together basically like the scoring system and how the fights are scored. So this Sunday, what we'll do is we'll train the lads. We'll put them through some drills. We've a chat planned, talking about some of the things that I've talked to you about, building the team culture and everything else, and going into specifics on that. And I suppose our 12-month plan. So I suppose there's loads of little areas that we can improve on. I'm sure maybe some of you've read the book Atomic Habits. Have you read that book they were talking about? It's by James Clear.
James Clear. I haven't read it, but I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people read it in MMA. Definitely.
It's great. Excellent book. Do you know what I mean? For anything. So whether it's sport or anything, but it's just basically like there's a part in it to talk about marginal gains, and it's like if we can make like small improvements in every single area, that's going to compound into bigger results over time. And in the opposite, if we neglect the small things, and then that'll compound into negative results over time. So I think how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah, there's one thing you mentioned there. I'm curious to pick your brain about. You mentioned the introduction of modern grappling into fighters' kind of styles. What, in your opinion, would you label as modern grappling in comparison to, say, non-modern, older grappling styles? Obviously, the development of the sport and the scoring system is currently developing, and an understanding around it as well. Is that kind of what you're meaning by modern grappling?
Yeah. I think the scoring definitely, is number one. And then like, I like just with the evolution of the sport itself, like it's kind of changed. If you look at like, say, to one extreme to another, if you look at like, say, Khabib and then go all the way back to Royce Gracie, like the grappling has completely evolved. Now Khabib's type of grappling is like, say, that new wave Dagestani type grappling, and whereas Royce Gracie came from a traditional jiu-jitsu background with, kind of using teeps to control distance and eventually clinch and take someone down, or maybe a single leg. Whereas Khabib's style is understanding, like say, it's a deeper understanding of grappling. It's understanding like like say body mechanics and how to stop people from moving and how to make someone regress on the ground instead of progress if they're trying to stand up. But where you put your weight, where your opponent's center of gravity is, and different little things like that, without kind of going too deep into it. But
and the damage side of things, I think it's funny you actually mentioned Khabib, because the three of us were just talking about actually that Dagestani style that has been introduced over the last couple of years, and where it's that Khabib is not going to go for that straight Brazilian jiu-jitsu finisher or look for the position. He's going to actually land damage first of all, and then find openings through that damage where 100%. It might lead to a TKO or to a submission, and that is the kind of most dominant style that we're seeing in mixed martial arts. It's one that's working quite well. 100%. It's one that you're going to be facing in the IMMAFs. How do you combat that as a coach?
Like I believe that, like say, we definitely have some of the best coaches, in the world. And I believe that, like say, myself and say the other coaches, we have a great understanding of that style. And I think that if you go into a competition like that and you try avoid the style, it's you're too fixated on your opponent's mindset rather than imposing your own. So a good example from, say, one of the young lads from my gym, Ronan Deegan, went and did the European Championships at a weight class above his weight, and he beat the Ukrainian champion by grappling him and then finishing him, within I think it was like 30 seconds left or something like that. But so it's like, it's understanding, like that Dagestani grappling style can be scary if you don't understand it. But what I do with our lads is we dive into it, and we use that style. We take it. It's like the Bruce Lee thing. You take what's useful, you discard what's not, and then you add what's uniquely your own. So for me, I think that Dagestani style mixed with, like, say, Brazilian, like a heavy Brazilian jiu-jitsu kind of like submission game, is excellent, along with, like, say, your kind of like maybe your freestyle or folk style wrestling. So I kind of have a little, I suppose, we call it a slogan or a thing that I like to say. The way I like to teach is, I don't teach jiu-jitsu. I teach mixed grappling arts. So it's being able to wrestle into judo and heavy top pressure into jiu-jitsu and everything else. So that's the way I view myself as a coach. It's mixed grappling arts. So it's cage wrestling. It's the similar on the floor, and I try not to put myself into a box, because if you put yourself into a box as a jiu-jitsu guy, then you kind of become a jiu-jitsu guy. If you say you're a wrestler, then you're wearing singlets and wrestling boots, and you become a wrestler. And it's like, I'm a boxer, then you don't throw kicks and stuff like that. I'm trying to not build a narrative. I'm trying to keep the box as big as possible. And that's my own kind of view on it. But and it's kind of working for us so far. You know what I mean? And if we feel that something better comes along and what we're doing isn't the best way of doing it, then we'll change.
Yeah, I think it's pretty evident, having, like, the three of us have watched the likes of Andrew Barrett and Jordan Scully and Ronan Deegan. Like, that is the style that they're having great success with over the last while. And you've obviously learned from watching the guys like the Dagestanis and implementing that into your own gym. When you look, just to jump back to the Irish team, we spoke to Andy Ryan a while back, and he was talking about how he would take little bits from the various other teams that are at these tournaments. We've seen, Kazakhstan, Bahrain, the Russians having great success. Ireland has had some brilliant success at the IMMAFs for such a small country. But has there been anything, considering that you have a lot of experience being over there, having seen these other teams compete, is there anything that you've seen that maybe Ireland was missing in the last number of years that other teams had, and that you now want to implement?
Yeah. So, like, say, I probably had those conversations with Andy while we've been away. We've obviously been away a good bit together. So he might have brought something up, or I might have brought something up, or one of the coaches or something we've talked about as a team. I feel that, like, say, if you want to use that, like, say, Dagestani, Bahrain, Russian style, as an example, they're very good at tactics, and not just technical, but they're very good at, like, say, getting certain reactions out of you to put you into weaker positions and so on. You know what I mean? And I took some of those drills, say, for my own lads, and some, for the lads on the Irish team that we want to implement, say, over the next couple of weeks. And it's not like changing someone's game. It's just being able to get your opponent to choose between A or B, if that makes sense. And if they choose A, then you can always go B. And trying to think of the grappling and that, like, say, as in always cause, like, dilemmas, if that makes sense. So it's like, if you use I know I'm kind of talking a little bit a technical example, but, like, say, if you're in side control top, what you want to do is you want to create the threat, for example, of me taking the mount, me setting up a Kimura, and me setting up the north-south choke. If they defend the north-south choke, then I go to the Kimura. If they defend the Kimura, I go to the north-south choke. So it's like, it's not changing people's games. It's getting them to...
It's kind of putting the opponent on the back foot all the time. Putting
them on the back foot, yeah. In certain understanding the chains. Like, say, when you go into certain positions, like clinch or back body lock, or if you punch someone in the face in a certain position, they can either stay there and take, or get punched into the head, or they can give up their back, or they can give up a whizzer, or so on, if that makes sense. So that's the way, little things like that. That would be one thing from a technical point. And then understanding how to win rounds, at the IMMAF tournaments, I think is huge. So, like, it doesn't favor just someone that's a pure striker with no wrestling. I think I'd be fairly all right saying that. You know what I mean? You need to be able to mix your wrestling and your striking really well. Whether you favor one or over the other, that's your own choice. But I feel if you just went in as a straight kickboxer, it's not going to suit you. You have to be able to win rounds, so I feel that's one thing. And just an overall professionalism, do you know what I mean? The small things, like if you're walking around the hotel, you're representing Ireland. Wear your team tracksuit. You know, you go down to breakfast, wear your team tracksuit. Travel together as a unit. You know what I mean? It's an honor representing your country. It's not just like raising £1,000 or £2,000 and just going, I'm registering for a competition. So I feel take a bit of pride in you know, wearing the green jersey or whatever it might be. So little things like that, and you know, there's some teams that are ahead of us in the sense that they get funded and everything else. So you'd look a few years ago, it was like say Sweden, they'd have like say a physio there, and then they'd have like say the coaches analysing say their opponents. So little small things like that. Coaches get together after the draw, analyze the opponents as a team, and see where opponent is weak and see where they're strong, and the same for our own fighter. Going out to the IMMAFs last time for Jordan Scully, Andrew and Ronan, I broke down every single person in their division. So I was all right, because Andrew and Ronan were in the same division. So there was, I don't know what was in the lightweight division, maybe 20 or 30 lads or something like that. And there's probably the same or maybe 20 or 15 or 17 or something in the junior welterweight division. But I watched every single opponent I could get tape on, and I took notes on them, say a couple of months out before I went to the IMMAF. So when I arrived there the week of, it was like, right, Jordan's against Italy. Right, have this wrote down. He's 3-1, whatever. He's an orthodox fighter, such and such. This and that. This is intent. These are his tendencies and so on. So it saves me scrambling, you know. And then I'm like, right. So look, you're not going to find tape on everyone, you know. Just because some of the Russian fighters are you know, their name is in Russian, and it's kind of, you know, it's hard to find it and wherever else. But just being prepared and being professional. Professionalism is the biggest thing this year, you know. So you know, how you act is how you become, you know. So that's I'm big on that.
Kieran, this year is kind of the team, from what I've seen so far, it's relatively small compared to previous years and previous competitions. Has there been like a decrease in interest, or is there a lack of places, just timing? What have you found has kind of led to that?
There's a couple of things. I think one, the nationals. So this is the 2022 Worlds, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what they've kind of done is they've opened up the spots mainly to the people that were in 2022 season. So I feel there's, you know, that's why maybe we're missing a few people that could have been on last year's team that aren't on, say, this next upcoming competition. And
is that on? Sorry to jump in. Is that on the IMMA side or the IMMAF side? Like where?
IMMAF.
I'm a bit confused by that.
IMMAF are kind of like backlogged, as far as I know, with after COVID. Is that right, Caoilte?
Yeah. So obviously, with how things worked, the World Championships had to fall into the next calendar year. So it's usually January, February. So last one was January. This one's February.
Yeah. So I feel that, like, for me, I've only I've only kind of stepped in the last couple of weeks, and there's only so much you can do, as it was just announced over Christmas and that. So I'm only kind of getting going now as a coach, and, you know, trying to build the coaching team and everything else the best we can. But after this IMMAF tournament, they're doing the nationals in March, so there'll be a new team picked or added to this current team. So I think as of now, well, as of the other day, there was like 18 people, or maybe 17 or 18 people on the squad. I don't know if that's changed, if there's more, there's less. You know, because people have jumped in and jumped out and so on. The competition's fairly stacked as well. I know that, like, say, most divisions are all, you know, full, as far as I'm aware of.
Yeah, you've got most of them full now, and like looking at them this year, the kind of the quality in certain teams are after. There's new countries coming in. There's more teams coming in. Like, have you been looking at that and thinking, okay, there's going to be new styles that you're going to have to work on when you're doing the squad sessions with the rest of the squad then?
Yeah, looking, I watch a lot of IMMAF tournaments, and I watch a lot of, like, say, fights and matches and stuff in general. Do you know what I mean? So you know, I'd feel that I'm fairly good at, like, say, looking at current trends in kind of like MMA or grappling. And then, like, even teams, certain countries have certain styles or favor certain styles. If you look at the Swedish team, for example, like, say, they'd have like a good kickboxing style, and they'd have like good jiu-jitsu. You know, the Spanish team are well put together. They'd have, like, say, they'd have a good striking style, and they'd have, like, say, good kind of MMA wrestling style. The English team did really well. I felt last year at the tournaments, they're definitely a team to watch, and they're really well put together. As in, they've some experienced fighters, like they've George Staines that obviously beat Ronan, who's 14-0, and he's ranked number 1 in Europe. So the English team are a good team, and I feel that the English team are kind of like heading in the right direction. So you can see that they're after building in the last couple of years. And as we were saying, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. The Americans would have, like, say, a good strike kickboxing style with like a very good jiu-jitsu style, whereas your Bahrain, you know, your Ukraines and these types of teams are very similar. It's the Ukraine, Bahrain, I don't think Russia's in it this year, I could be wrong. They'd all have a similar style, so like that heavy kind of MMA grappling style, with submissions, or so a heavy kind of MMA kind of wrestling grappling style with submissions on top of it, like mainly like Dars chokes, anacondas, you know, good rear naked chokes, good arm bars from mount top and so on. So they kind of have a similar style, and they'd have similar ways of getting into their opponents' heads, and that you'd see at tournaments. The Russian team they play a lot of like psychological kind of warfare. You'd see them in the hotels, say for example in the lead up, and they wouldn't open the doors for any of the young lads, or wouldn't smile, or wouldn't look, and the coaches would be the same. You'd probably see it when you're there. And then you know, if they felt that their opponent was getting the better of them, or if they felt that like maybe they couldn't you know, they're kind of even, you'd see them smile a lot at their opponent. You know, they'd smile to get reaction, to try to get one of their opponents to react. So and then like at the end of the tournament, like say the Russians would be the first to come over to the Irish team and ask them to swap jerseys. So it's like they're brief. It's like, because when we were wearing the Irish jerseys, it was like everyone was asking us to swap, and the Russians like were just, it took me back a couple of times, because it was like, because I heard one of the young lads turn around and say, when we were walking back up, like this was after the medal ceremony, I think it was in Bulgaria or somewhere like that, and they were like, I thought they all hated us. You know what I mean? But then after, it was like they were calling the Irish lads, oh, hey, brother, you know, can I have your jersey and all this stuff. And it was very like the week in the hotel, it was like, oh, Khabib is the best, Conor isn't. And, you know, it was a lot of that going on and everything else. And the boys were like, the young lads were like, yeah, we know, sure, Khabib is the best. And they're like, oh, okay. You know, but,
fair enough.
Yeah, sure, the boys are like, yeah, well, sure he is. He's the champion, you know, at the time, or whatever else. But, yeah, it's just, you know, I think you can't beat experience, you know, and even if you're telling the young lad, like, look, you know, especially if it's probably not someone's first IMMAF tournament, you know, if I think it's most of them have done an IMMAF tournament before, as far as I know. I could be missing one or two, but even just saying to someone, look, you'll see now, like, this is all just like kind of psychological kind of warfare. You know, you're here to win. Forget about the noise, block it out. You're here to do a job. You know what I mean? Just focus on tomorrow type thing. So just little things like that, you know, having experience and so on.
100%. Look, we talked about the country side of things for a little bit. Let's talk about the club side of things, if you don't mind, Kieran. Obviously, last year, SBG Tullamore turned 10 years old. Coming into 2023, obviously, you've got a lot of the lads coming and competing on the amateur side of things. In particular, I'd love to ask you about Charlie. He's getting prepared to take on Mike Shipman coming up in the February 25th show at Bellator. What was your kind of thoughts around his last fight against Fabian Edwards, and what's the mindset for Charlie coming in for the February fight against Mike?
So like after it was funny, like I'm sure Charlie wouldn't mind me saying this, like say the thing that kind of the area he was beat, I won't go into too much detail because we kind of worked on certain things, and we are working on certain things. There was one or two things that happened in the fight that I said to him kind of in the lead up to training, or in the lead up to the fight when we were in training, about doing a certain technique a certain way, and we were kind of talking about it, whatever, and he chose to do it the way that he was always doing it, you know what I mean? And it kind of cost him a round or two. And the first thing he said to me, he put his arm around me when we walked out the cage. We weren't even out of the arena. He said to me, you were right. He said, that thing you said to me that morning when I was with, you know, one of the fighters, and he said, I should have fucking listened to you or whatever. And I said, look, lesson learned, proud of you. You fought number 2, and you know, the number 2 ranked fighter in Bellator and everything else, and we'll build on it from here. Do you know what I mean? So I feel that we've for this one, we've definitely worked on the areas that kind of maybe let the fight slip away from him. You know what I mean? Fabian did the right thing. He fought a smart fight. There's no point there swinging with Charlie in those 4-ounce gloves. You know, for either one of them could have got clipped. You know, Charlie could have got clipped, or Charlie could have clipped him. But it was funny, like in all the tape that that I watched with, say, Fabian, and that, I don't think I've ever seen him shoot for a takedown in his Bellator career anyway. You know what I mean? And it went as far back as some of his amateur fights as well. So I felt that like he gave a good account of himself. You know what I mean? Charlie's fighting a long time now. It was a competitive fight when it was on the feet. I felt that he should have trusted in his clinch game a lot more. He's an excellent clinch game. I would have liked to have seen him been a little bit more patient there and trying to wear him down, you know, a little bit more. He was probably too nice at one stage in the first round when Fabian said he kicked him in the balls or something like that. You know, that was probably an opportunity for him to go in until the referee stopped it. You know, little things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know, overall, it was a big fight. He didn't look out of his depth. Obviously, he was bet fair and square. Fabian was the better fighter. But I feel that like he learned a lot from it, and I feel that he's going to be a lot more. You know, he probably can't get more confident, but confident in himself as a fighter. As in, you know what, I'm still right there at the age I'm at. You know what I mean? If I just tweak a couple little things and I do, you know, a few little things different, you know, I can, you know, he can beat most of them in that division. You know what I mean? So Shipman poses like a different threat. You know, he's a good clinch game, good front headlock game. You know, he's got like say a good few finishes on his record from Anaconda, Darce Choke, and Guillotine. He's orthodox, strong. You know, he'd have a good kind of grappling game. You know, decent striking and that. So it's a big fight for Charlie. Charlie started his career out in London Shoot Fighters as well. I don't know if you know that. So the London Shoot Fighters would know Charlie from the early days when Charlie was living in London. So like and obviously he's changed a lot over the years. But yeah, like the last couple of years, like if you know the way Charlie's training and just his attitude and everything else, and less distractions and everything else, I would have wished that I had the experience that I have now as a coach, and I had Charlie, say, the same age as Ronan or one of the lads, because I honestly feel that he could have, you know, he could have beat any of them, you know, and I really do mean that. I just feel that that's something that, like, obviously we're in a great position, and I've had, like, say, great memories with him. We've traveled around the world, and we've had, like, say, been at big shows, and it's not the end or anything like that. Obviously he's a contract still with Bellator and all that, but like he's a fighter. Like he's a proper fighter. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've shared rooms with him the nights before some of his biggest fights, and you just see the way he behaves. You know, he'd sleep for like 10 hours before a fight, and he'd jump out of bed and right, let's go for a scrap. And that's just the way it is. He just, you know, and it's just and Ronan would be another one. Ronan not as scary as Charlie, but Ronan's one of these lads that shows up on game day, no matter how big the day is. He just has the mindset for it. He shows up on the big days. You know what I mean? And you know, you've seen fighters over the years in the UFC and that. Dustin Poirier as an example, you know, excellent fighter. And when it comes to the big game or the big days, he just doesn't. He's not able to, you know, push through. I think Bisping was like that for a while.
Yeah.
Cerrone was kind of known for that a little bit, and then later on he was kind of known for being more of a slow starter, and then you know, I suppose then like kind of being a little bit more nervous and everything else. But yeah, like it's me and Charlie started out together as, like, say, training partners in Portlaoise. We actually had an argument. That's how we became friends.
Tell us about the argument.
It was a rant. It was like, you're going back like fucking 15, 16 years ago, about 15 years ago. And Charlie came home from London, and, you know, a little bit rough around the edges, to say the least. And we were training together, and then I don't know, I had a fight coming up or something like that, whatever it was. And he said I wasn't running enough, I should be doing this and that. And I said to him, sure, I am fucking, you know, I am running, I am doing this and that. And then sure, he lost the head. And then the two of us were kind of, we had a couple of words and that. And then he went one direction, I went the other direction. And the coach of the gym, John Ging, rang me that night, and he said to me, because I was kind of training there before Charlie and so on, and I was fighting out of the gym and stuff, competing out of the gym. And he said to me, look, if you want me to tell him to go, you know, fucking I'll tell him to go wherever, you know, and I'll tell him to go find somewhere else. And I said, no, it's grand, you know what I mean? It is what it is, or whatever. So that was Saturday, and then Monday came around, and Monday night training came around, and Charlie came onto the mat, and I was on the mat, and he put out his hand, and he said, look, fucking sorry, fucking just had a lot going on, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't have said this and that. And I said, look, same, I shouldn't have fucking said what I said. Shook hands, and then we became fucking training partners ever since. So it was just kind of one of those stories, like, say, with myself and Charlie and that, like, we trained in Portlaoise together, and then we went up the Long Mile Road together in SBG, obviously in the kind of glory days with the yellow mats. And me and him were sharing cars with barely any NCT or tax on it, and pulling up at petrol stations going, you know, when's this fucking thing going to pay off? Do you know what I mean? I'm on the dole, and he's on the dole, and he was thinking about going to London for work, and they did go to London for work, and then he come home, and I went, and we were just like, oh, the country's fucked. You know what I mean? This is like, you're talking like just after, this is the recession time. Do you know what I mean? And for the two of us to be in, we often talk about, for the two of us to be in the position where we're in now, do you know what I mean? Charlie's doing well with Bellator, and he's providing a living for his kids and his family and everything else. You know, he's very private that way, but he's looking after his family and everything. And same for me. You know what I mean? We do what we love every day. We'll meet tomorrow morning at 8:15. We'll start training, and you know, we get to make a living out what we love. You know what I mean? We've done it for free. You know what I mean? And now we're getting paid for it. So it's great to see him where he is and the fights that he's getting and the money that he's earning and everything else. He deserves it. He's had the hardest, one of the hardest paths.
Do you think that not enough is made about the success side of Charlie's career? Like when I look at him, it's mad to think that he's 42 years old. Like I have to kind of remind myself his age, but then like he's also 7-2 in Bellator. Like I feel like so much when he came into the UFC, and obviously, you know, it was a big spotlight because he's close friends with Conor, and then he had kind of that weird knockout, and then he was gone. But like since leaving and joining Bellator, he's had an amazing run overall. And to lose a decision against a guy like Fabian Edwards, who's now gone on to face Gegard Mousasi, shows he's still right up there. I think like maybe not enough is made of the success that Charlie's had in his post UFC run. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%, Andy. It's like I think that's one of two, or maybe one or two reasons. One would be the Conor thing, as in when he was hanging around with Conor, you know, obviously early on, and you know, Conor had a lot of fans and a lot of people, you know, that would be rooting against him. He often said it himself, I don't care as long as people are you know, as long as they're watching, you know. And obviously when Charlie had the loss or two, he lost. The first fight he lost was to your man Abdul Razak Al-Sahan, and he fought last night, and he's an absolute monster. See his knockout, like he won in the second round. So he's an absolute monster. You know, Bufondo was one of those ones where, in my own opinion, like say Charlie at 77, he should have never been at 77, and that's where the UFC said that's where they were gonna. That's the only way that they'd take him in. So I feel that freak knockout came from, we've kind of talked about, like, you know what I mean? Like, say, cutting a lot of weight, because that is a freak. That's a freak thing. Loads of people get, you know, dumped in their head and everything else. So we feel that maybe there wasn't enough water around the brain or something like that, or whatever. You know, I'm sure there's a doctor or you know, a weight cutting expert that would probably be able to, you know, talk about it properly. But I feel there was definitely something there that, you know, impacted that. So he didn't get to show. You know, his ability and everything else. He's had a hard time with, you know, everything that went on with Joe Cavallo and everything else. You know, the loss of him, and when I was around for that, I cornered him and everything else. So that's a big thing. He's had a tough career. Started off bare knuckle boxing in fields in London for money. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't get much tougher than that. There's pixelated videos of him on YouTube. You can see it. When you know, taking some lad's head off and stuff like that. So he definitely has a book in him anyway. Do you know what I mean? And sorry, the other reason, one of the reasons I feel there isn't much made about Charlie's or as much of a I suppose what would you say, hype or whatever it might be about Charlie as a fighter, and that is he doesn't really do social media too well. Do you know what I mean? He barely uses it. He's a quiet man. He's a simple man. You know what I mean? He looks after his family and he trains and he looks after himself. Do you know what I mean? And everything else, you know, and I feel that the last couple of years he's kind of after finding himself again, if that makes sense. And I suppose like it's like anything. We live in a world of social media, and if you're not like posting how good you are every day and showing your best moments to everyone, you don't exist. You know, it's like, I suppose it's the same as any of us here on this chat. If we don't put ourselves out there, you know, the podcast doesn't grow or the gym doesn't grow and so on. You just don't exist. It's the world we live in, or the world that we live in. So I use my social media basically as a tool for, you know, my gym, the lads, the sport, and myself as a coach, and use it as a promotional tool, and that's it. You know, So yeah.
And you know what? It's, you know what, yourself and Charlie, both of you are creating that perfect example that kind of to guide your younger fighters through their careers as well. And obviously it's like the likes of yourself and Charlie, you have to go through the mistakes and have to learn the lessons so that you can kind of instill that into your younger fighters. Before we let you go, Kieran, and thanks so much for taking the time, you know, what are some of your hopes and aspirations for SBG Tullamore going into 2023 and the development of the team and the young lads coming through as well?
We've a great team. So like I'm very strict on who we let into our competition team. So our MMA team. So we've teams. We've like say like a novice kind of amateur team, more of a novice kind of amateur team in the evenings, and the lads can jump in and train there, and piece all the separate disciplines together. And that, but I have like kind of criteria that I want the lads to hit. So whether that's like through certain different types of competitions or reach a certain level in grappling and striking and so on, and just have a good attitude towards the sport and kind of being all in. So if they're all in, then they get invited to to the competition team training. But we've some excellent lads coming through that are going to make their amateur debut this year. I feel if they were with some different clubs, they would have made their debut maybe a year or two ago. But like I said, I'm trying to bring them on the best I can. And I feel that when someone comes out of SBG Tullamore, win, lose or draw, they're always going to give a good account of themselves, and they're definitely going to be people to watch in the future. So I've three more lads making their debut this year. I've a flyweight making his debut. He's excellent. He's really good, so he's going to be one to watch.
What's his name?
His name's Shane Dunn. So he's excellent. He's training with me a few years. Really good young lad. He'll fight flyweight day before and bantamweight the same day. We've another guy. He's an excellent kickboxer, and his grappling's kind of right up there now. He's from Poland. His name's David, so he's coming through. We've some really good young lads coming through over the next we're trying to do different targets and goals for them to hit each quarter. So if they hit these these goals in the first quarter of the year, then we'll set them up for the second quarter and so on. That's the goal this year, is to do better than last year. Make the coaching better. Make the atmosphere better, the culture better in the team. And I really do mean that. I feel that a lot of people say that just because they feel for the sake of saying it. But like say, I went away at Christmas for a couple of days. Just went down to Doolin. That was just with my wife and son, and I was relaxing relaxing during the day. But at night time, I was kind of I was writing down the stuff that I feel that I can improve on next year. Myself as a coach, and the lads. We've really good culture in the team. I got really nice two nice compliments last week. I was with a physio for myself last week, just kind of getting some work done on my back and that, just dry needling and stuff. And he said to me, when I treat any of your lads from SBG Tullamore, he said, they're so well mannered, they're so good. He said, it makes me want to join the gym. He said, I love that. He said, so whatever you're doing up there, he said, it's excellent. And I had a father of a new kid that's coming through. He's doing MMA. He's a novice. He's doing novice MMA competitions and stuff like that at the moment. But he's a purple belt under me, and he's kind of away for a few years, and he's kind of back training now, and just away with work and everything else. And he came back and he said to me, he said yourself and he named the other coaches, and that we've some older coaches, black belts and brown belts and stuff in the gym. He said you're teaching the young lads up here how to be men. You know what I mean? And I thought obviously that's a big responsibility. It's not something that we set out to actually do, but if it has a knock-on effect and it makes people kind of have better manners and you know what I mean, and respect and everything else, and I'm all about that, and I thought it was just two really nice compliments to get last week, and I wasn't expecting it. You know what I mean? So that's what I want my lads to be known for. Being respectful. Do you know what I mean? Excellent fighters. Do you know what I mean? Great mindset. Do you know what I mean? And just being good people. Do you know what I mean? Outside of martial arts, because I know we get to see the shows week in, week out, and that's all the glamour and everything else. But what really matters is what type of person you are and what kind of mark you leave on the world when it's all said and done.
100%, very well said. And credit to yourself and to Charlie, everything that you're doing down there at SBG Tullamore. We wish you continued success, obviously, down there with the gym. Obviously, wish you continued success with Team Ireland as well. I know that they're in very good hands with yourself and Paul and Alex and Liam and everyone like that too. So thanks so much, Kieran, for taking the time.
No problem.
Look forward to talking to you again. And we'll wish you all the best for the Worlds, and also good success with SBG as well. Thanks for taking the time to speak.
Best of luck with a new era for the Davern family as well.
I have another 10 days, so I'm going to milk it. So, thanks very much, lads. Good talking to you.
Appreciate it, Kieran. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, gentlemen. We shall move on. Yeah. Always a great interview with Kieran. Always has some great things to say, and is a great role model for Ireland and a representative of Ireland as well.
Very exciting times for the Team Ireland as well. So, to hear the background staff, and Reza and Alexander O'Sullivan and Liam Ogue, Liam Ogue's been doing great work for a long time with the Irish team. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to see how the Irish amateur national side do this year, and the changes that are made, and it's clear that Kieran thinks very deeply about these things. So I'm buzzing after that interview.
Absolutely, yeah, as am I. So what we're going to do to kind of wrap it up before we wrap up this episode is we've decided to spend some time and talk about a couple of fighters from right across the board in Irish MMA, fighters that we are looking forward to watching or have an eye on, fighters to watch, if you want to call it, coming into 2023. And we're going to give a couple of predictions as well, a couple of bold predictions. with a big lean. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, when we say bold, emphasis is the word. Thanks, Andy. Emphasis on the bold predictions as well. So we're going to have a little bit of a fun conversation in and around that as well. So let's get going, lads. We're talking about fighters to watch in 2023, and the way we've kind of designated it is Irish fighters that we can kind of are looking forward to watching on the world scene, a prospect coming through, and then also an amateur fighter that we're looking forward to seeing.
Ian said before we recorded that if he doesn't pick you, he hates you. That's what Ian was saying. You know.
Don't be direct.
Chris and I didn't say
it. Just sure, look at lads, we could be here all day and we could do a full podcast on all of the prospects. So obviously we're not going to be able to mention everybody. So we will be talking about any and everybody throughout this year anyways. But just to start us off, Andy, I'll go to you first. And then we'll go to Caoilte and I'll finish off too. So I'll put the ball in your court first. And we'll go with the world stage first. What fighter are you watching on the world stage? And we maybe say world stage, we're talking about the big promotions, Bellator, PFL, Invicta, Cage Warriors, and the UFC, obviously enough. So, Andy, over to you.
So the fighter that I am most intrigued to see on the world stage this year, and I say the world stage specifically because I think we will see him on the world stage, the very elite, is Paul Hughes. As of right now, he has not been signed to the UFC yet. We don't know if he's going to be on the Cage Warriors Dublin card, if maybe we see him get a call up for UFC London. But I firmly believe whether it's now, whether it's one fight down the road, I think we will see him fight in the UFC this year. And I think we'll see him win, more than likely. I think that last fight just showed me everything I needed to see. I didn't need to see anything, but it reaffirmed the belief that I have that Paul Hughes is an elite talent in Irish MMA. And I think that the sky is the limit for him. And I'm very, very excited to see him put on the UFC gloves, which I think he will do this year.
Very well said. Caoilte, what about you? On the world stage, who are you looking out for this year?
So I'm going to go with Franz Malambo. He's not. Last we saw him was Combachi, I believe.
Yeah, it's crazy to think with Franz Malambo, lads, that he didn't get the chance to compete in 2022, which is a crying shame. So, very, very good pick, Caoilte. What are your expectations coming into 2023?
I have two. I don't think he goes back to Bellator. So my thought process is, number one, he gets signed to the UFC. And I think it'd be a great move. I don't think he fights in Combachi again, unless it's for the title, and God knows that'll happen. But no, I think UFC for him, or he gets signed to PFL and he competes in Dublin. That's my thought process. I think he could do serious things inside PFL and the UFC. So let's see.
Yeah, very good shout there, Caoilte, and two good options for France. I just to piggyback off that. I'd like, and maybe to piggyback off Paul. I agree with everything that you said about Paul as well, Andy. It's going to be a huge year for him. I hope he gets that call up to the UFC as well. As I hope France I just want to see France in there. I
just want to see him active, don't you? Like,
yeah, man,
you forget about. It's so easy to forget about France.
Like France could be in my opinion, could be up there as one of the best active fighters in Ireland right now. It's just that we haven't seen him compete. Like it's.
If he hadn't got hit with that short hook by, what was your man who beat James Gallagher? I forget his name.
Ricky
Bandejas, yeah.
Like, he was schooling him before that.
He was, yeah. That was it. That's his last defeat.
Trajectory right now.
Yeah, so it'll be great to see him, and hopefully we do get to see him getting signed up with one of the bigger promotions and getting a couple of fights under his belt as well. The person who I have went for on the world stage, I feel is going to have a big 2023, and one I'm watching and I'm excited to watch is Carl Moore. Especially, you had a brief interaction, Andy, with yourself and John Kavanagh on Twitter Space there over the weekend as well. And I agree with your statement and your sentiment in regarding to Carl's matchmaking, but John spoke up and said that they have a plan in place, and I, for one, I'm really excited because that was a fantastic win against Carl Albrechtsen. and prove that Carl belongs where he is. And I feel that he's going to be a major player at the top of the light heavyweight division in Bellator this year. They have a plan. He will be fighting in February. It'll be very interesting to see what the plan is after that. I'm very curious to hear, and I'd love to hear what Carl's thoughts on that and what the actual plan is itself. But you can only imagine that the plan involves a gold belt around his waist, and whether that happens at the end of 2023 or not is going to be interesting to see. But I think that was one of the performances of the year last year by Carl, especially the way the fight went, where he had his back against the wall as well and proved to himself and everybody else that he can dig deep. And fantastic win, and I'm excited to see him going in there again next month and putting on another show. And let's see what happens after that. Another win. And I mean, you're talking, he's got to be fighting a top 5 level guy after that. If he gets a win there, you're talking title shot. So he's not too far away from getting his chance to fight for a world championship. And I'm very, very excited to see his progression in 2023. Andy, we'll move back over to you. A prospect, an Irish MMA prospect that you're looking out for in 2023.
My prospect for 2023 is the GTA selector himself, Ger Harris. So Ger fought twice in 2022. He obviously had a great win on Cage Conflict in his pro debut, and then we saw him again. Was it Cage Fight Series? Is that it? That the promotion I think it was on. Yeah,
not sure.
I think I'd be very interested to see how many times he fights. I think that Ger has the world at his feet. If I'm honest with you, like he looks incredibly competent in the grappling. He's got cinder blocks for hands. He's got great striking. He's in a good gym under Owen Roddy, and I think that he could have a bright future. He's a loose cannon, a great personality, and he kind of has all those things that could, if everything clicks together, he could be on a skyrocket.
That's star quality, isn't it? With all of those little ingredients that you said there, and it's clear to see, like, he has an abundance of talent, great personality.
I'm not sure what a skyrocket is. Also, I think I just said skyrocket. I don't think that's a thing.
That's some fucking kind of invention Elon Musk is working on now, or something like that. So it is, But no, Ger Harris is a great shout, Andy. Great shout, and I am equally excited to see Ger and his progression as well. Caoilte, what do you think, my man? Prospects, Irish prospects that you're watching out for in 2023.
C-Max Alexander O'Sullivan for me. He's, his amateur career speaks for itself, and good performance in his debut. He's so involved in the game now between the coaching side and the competing side that I think, this could be the year that he really kind of breaks through and hopefully gets either signed to a decent promotion or gets a few fights in. Hopefully 3 fights this year is what I'd love to see from Alexander, to be honest.
Yeah, and it can't be said half enough as well, the balancing act. And I thought Keith spoke very well about that situation in there, but very, very good to hear Keith speaking like that. And obviously that kind of mentality, like he said as well, is being instilled by Alexander. And it was great to see him make his debut. And like you, I hope to get to see him a few times as well, but I think it can't be snuffed at, and it does need to be kind of commended, the balancing act as he is doing right now as a young fighter, looking after his own professional career, and also the stable of fighters that he has, the stable of successful fighters that he has as well, so he's showing success on both sides of the board. So that's a great shout there as well. My prospect that I'm looking forward to a big 2023 is Dara Kelly. Really excited to see Dara progress. Hopefully we get to see him fight a little bit more, and I know that he's a guy that wants to fight as much as he can, but I think it's the story of him being included into the top 25 under 25 in the ESPN kind of article that was released at the end of last year kind of proves that it's not only us that is looking at guys like Dara Kelly. He's been noticed on a kind of a world level, and it was great to see him included in that list as well. And I am really excited. What got me so excited about Dara Kelly is the way he spoke after his last performance, which was a dominant one, pretty one-sided performance that he was never really in any trouble in, but he came out and he was disappointed, and he said he needs to improve. And it's that kind of drive and that mentality that is going to set you above everybody else as well. So,
He's very interested to see him at featherweight as well now.
Yeah, very, very interested. And I mean, there's abundance of fighters that we could pick in all of these categories. But for me, I think we covered it well so far. And for me, it's definitely Dara Kelly. I'm really excited to see him come in there, and obviously he'll be fighting there in February. He is fighting February, isn't he?
Yeah,
he is. Yeah, and it'll be great to see his progression in Bellator this year as well. Down in the featherweight division. Amateur, Andy, over to you.
So I was going to choose, let me caveat, because I don't think either of you have chosen this. Hang on, I'll just start talking. I was going to choose Gary Rooney, but I think it's kind of a cop-out to choose Gary Rooney because he's already had a big breakout. We already know he's a fantastic fighter. He's probably, wouldn't be surprised if he goes pro this year. So the one that I want to watch at amateur this year is Senan Coakley. Very, very intrigued by him. Still very young. Both in age, he's only 18, and he's only had a couple of fights. He looks like he has got a lot of potential, and he looks like he has that star quality, that authenticity that always just draws me into fighters. And then when there's something about a fighter and they can fight really well, it's like, all right, now I really want to pay attention. So he definitely has my attention in 2023. Yeah,
it's like putting on that performance that he put on at Era Fighting Championships, but then the interview with you after, Andy, it was like I could sense that aura, that special feeling looking at that just on my laptop. You were right there beside Senan that time, and he gave a fucking cracking interview after a cracking performance, had lots of great things to say. It's like the perfect ingredients for someone to look out for and someone to be excited for coming through in the amateur ranks right now. So it was a great choice.
I mean, you've got a brother who's an absolutely fantastic Muay Thai fighter, like, I'm sure.
World class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very good call. Caoilte, yourself, who are you looking out for on the amateur ranks?
He had a bit of a breakout year last year, but I'm going to stick with this pick. And Ronan Deegan for me from SBG Tullamore. We heard Kieran speak so highly of him there as well. So, I think after that European bronze up at lightweight, when he fights at bantamweight, it's just crazy. I think, look, this year he can top that again. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. Now that he's kind of really established himself as one of the top amateur prospects in Ireland. He could have easily won the Severe Amateur Fighter of the Year. He would have been definitely in contention. Like, he was phenomenal.
He was well up there. It was well up there. It was a conversation, obviously, we had behind the scenes as well in discussions about it, and it was so close between a lot of fighters, but Ronan was definitely somebody who was up there, and very, very good choice there, Caoilte. For myself on the amateur ranks, a guy who I was impressed at the Worlds last year, and a guy who kind of went viral a little bit with his Tarico Plata, excellently called by Paul Brown, is Jake Guy. Anything that I've seen, obviously he's very, very young in his amateur career, and very young in general too, at only 18, 19 years of age now, I believe. I really kind of like his style. I like what he brings to the table, and these kind of taking chances and unique submissions. Those are the things that kind of get people talking. So Jake is a guy I'm looking forward to seeing progressing into 2023. Obviously, like I said, we could have named a bunch of fighters in the amateur. Like, we were so fucking lucky, guys, to be honest, with the level of talent that's coming through in the country right now, whether it be amateur prospects or world stage. It's fucking unreal.
Even looking back at 2022, like I started putting together a list of like just people who had the decent years, and look, I'll just run through a load of names here. These are all people who like undefeated last year, like James Sheehan 3-0, Lee Hammond 4-0, Caelan Loughran 3-0, Ryan Shelley 3-0, Paul Hughes 1-0, Rhys McKee 1-0, Ian Gary 2-0 in the UFC, Kenny Muckenrana 2-0, Sean O'Bannon 4-0, Omran Shaban 2-0, Ger Harris 2-0, Brad Katona 2-0, Will Fleury 2-0, Nate Kelly 3-0, Sinead Cavan undefeated, Henry Felipe, Kieran Clark, Cara Moore, Derek Kelly, Scott Harvey, and then you've got other Cian Cowley, Leon Hill, Stephen Costello. Like, all of these went undefeated in 2022 and more. There's definitely people I've forgotten on that list. So, like, that's just the pros. We've got the amateurs as well. It's been a brilliant year in 2022 for Irish MMA, and there was, there's so many people to keep an eye on in 2023, which is why this is going to be brilliant for the next year to be able to track this along, and fans should be excited.
We're in a good position too, where we're going to be able to come in here and do it every couple of weeks and talk about it as well, and kind of live through all the moments as well. That will bring us. So let's move on to some of the moments, or some of the bold predictions, as we want to call this, for 2023.
Here we go.
In Irish MMA, and just so that we can say we don't know. We had a little bit of a discussion around the last kind of topic, rather than, picking the same fighters. We showed our cards for fighters that we were looking at, so that we didn't kind of get our wires crossed. We don't know what each other's bold predictions are for 2023, and we're going to give you 3 bold predictions. And I'm going to go. We'll stay going in chronological order here, Andy. I'm going to hand it to you to give us your first bold prediction for Irish MMA in 2023.
So my first bold prediction for Irish MMA in 2023 is that Ian Machado Gary defeats a top 10 ranked UFC welterweight.
I like that.
Fantastic.
I like that. Yeah, it actually crossed my mind. To add that, and I didn't. I would have maybe said top 15. Top 10 is a bold prediction.
I actually had a ranked opponent first, and I was like, no, that's not bold enough. That's not bold enough. We're going top 10. It's going to happen. I believe. And
it's a fair shout. Look, it kind of leads us on to another small. We'll branch off in a little bit of conversation. He called out Brian Barberena last week, and that's a good step up in the right direction for you to achieve that bold prediction, Andy, as well. I mean, it's the type of fighter that I feel Ian Gary needs to be taken on in 2023. And Brian Barberena is all for it too. That would be a hell of a fight if it was.
Brian Barberena always brings a scrap as well. Like, that would be it'd be a great fight. It seems like they both want it. So if that could happen, that's the type of fight I feel, if you can look very impressive against a Brian Barberena, then, maybe a ranked opponent next, or maybe someone just outside the rankings, and then you have your ranked. So you have 3, I'm thinking 3 fights, 2023, 3 wins, and the final one would be Wonderboy Thompson. There you go.
Someone like that, yeah. That's exactly the way.
Incredible.
Personally, how I'd like to see Ian, like obviously the little bit of a breakaway and stuff like that. It's not a massive time outside of the cage or outside of training. Obviously, he had a new child. Layla and himself have a kid, and he spent the time getting used to that and getting accustomed to that, and supporting Layla and his new son as well. So credit to him for doing that, for taking time out and settling up things in his personal life. All of that is kind of settled up now. It's down to business next year in 2023. That being said, you'd forget that Ian fought twice last year in 2022 in the UFC, and 2 good wins as well. I'd love to see him come back and fight a small step up from Gabe Green, then a Brian Barberena kind of a fight. And then, as you said, Andy, someone big name, Wonderboy or a ranked guy. And if that was to happen, and there's a very good chance of it, you're going to be sitting pretty there at this time next year saying, I got my bold prediction right. You bet. That's what we'll do. We'll try.
Psychic Stevenson.
Psychic Stevenson. I love it. I love it. Caoilte, what's your first bold prediction of 2023?
I've been saying this since last year. So, for 2023, I think 5 Irish fighters are going to get signed to the UFC. Simple as.
Woo! Love it.
Nice.
Now, is this 5 new Irish fighters get signed, or?
Oh yeah. No. I'm not going to not going to take the easier route. 5 new Irish fighters going to get signed by the end of 2023, and then 2024 we're going to have an Irish card.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, perfect.
Who do you reckon, if you were to put you on the spot here? But there's loads, like you've got Paul Hughes, Reese McKee.
Name the first. You named the first 2 there. People are signed with so many places. That's the other side of it. Either Shauna or Danny. I think it'd be one or the other, because obviously they're in the same
or
both. But if same division, same promotion, it's usually just one, whoever reaches champion first. Lee Hammond, I think very good chance. Franz Malambo, as I mentioned earlier. Who else? Top of my head.
Caoilte Loughran.
Yeah, there you go. There's James Sheehan. If he picks up a belt this year, you wouldn't be surprised to see him in there either.
Ryan Shelley, you never know, could end up picking up a belt this year.
See, the avenues to get into the UFC now are becoming a little bit more easier than maybe once what they were. You know, obviously you had the tried and true tested one at the Cage Warriors route, or, you know, going into a big European kind of regional show and becoming a champion there. I might have seen you getting signed as well. What we have now is Dana White's Contender Series, which is an option for fighters to get signed. And, you know, UFC are more forthcoming in kind of, you know, winning a regional title or being a Cage Warriors title did play in a major factor in kind of getting signed to the UFC, whereas I don't necessarily think that is the case right now. And with the likes of Bellator, PFL coming into Ireland as well, if you're a prospect, you can go and you can take your one fight deals with your Bellators or your PFLs as well, and then see what happens. Play that free agency market as much as you can. That's what I would be suggesting to do.
And you don't even need the title sometimes. Like obviously he's out of his fight against Chris Duncan, but Mike Figlik never won the title in Cage Warriors, and he got signed.
Yeah, so, big time. Yeah, that's it. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. My first bold prediction for 2023 is similar to Caoilte's, but a little bit different. I think that we're going to have 4 Irish fighters signed to the UFC, and in the year, and I think they're all going to go undefeated as well. That's what I'm going to say.
I like
it.
Nice.
Just a little bit extra onto yours as well. Not quite so much 5. I'm not sure if they'll have enough time before the year is out to get there. But I'm thinking, we're going to have a slew of Irish
fighters. Look at this positivity. Let's go.
Yeah, but it's true. Honestly, I'm not just fucking saying it to blow flowers up anybody's ass. Honestly, it's more so like the level of competition that's out there and the avenues to get into the UFC now as well, like I said, are much easier. And we have that level of quality of fighters there that can compete. Like the level of fighters that we're seeing in the UFC right now, there's better Irish fighters on the scene, and there's Irish fighters that can go in there and make an impact as well. The likes of, like we mentioned, Hughes getting called up. Hopefully Reece McKee will get a second opportunity back in the UFC as well. Guys who can go in there and if they're matched correctly can compete as well. So that would be kind of the cusp of my bold prediction. I think this fighters getting signed, not so much, but maybe all fighters going undefeated. Obviously, we're going to have Ian Gary, who's going to be fighting a couple of times. We may see the return of Conor McGregor as well in 2023. So that would be.
So that's what I was going to ask. If a certain former double champion loses, does that mean?
Of course, if you're Irish and you lose in the UFC, that's it gone out the window.
You should have put that caveat on there and said no, it's only the ones who get signed that have to win.
No, I'm going to go off. That's the boldness in the prediction, I guess. True, as well. I want Irish MMA fighters signed to the UFC to have an undefeated year inside the octagon, and that would be my first bold prediction. I'll send it over to you again, Andy, for your second one. Second of 3.
With all this positivity, I feel like we need some negativity here. And I'll caveat, look, on a serious note, I really hope this doesn't happen. I hope I'm completely wrong about this next one. But my next bold prediction is Cage Legacy do not put on an event in 2023. And I hope I'm wrong. But I don't know anything. I'm just looking at some social media posts as of late where cages are being sold and there's no event in February, and they put on their post, we'll let you know, or when the time is right, we'll put on another show. And thanks to everyone for support. It just sounds very ominous, to be honest with you. It just sounds very, very ominous. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they put on a load of shows. I think they've been the staple of Irish MMA in the Republic of Ireland over the last number of years. I think since 2017 they've been putting on shows consistently, and they're a massive crucial component of the domestic scene. So I hope to see a Cage Legacy show in the near future. But yeah, we're doing bold predictions, so there's a very bold prediction for you.
Surely that is a bold prediction. Yeah, that one caught me on the hop, and I was unaware of all of the instances that have been going on. And I echo your sentiments about it. I hope it doesn't happen, because Cage Legacy are a very important part of Irish MMA development on the regional scene. But yeah, fair play. No, it's a legit bold prediction, and we should move over to Caoilte for number 2.
I'm actually switching my bold prediction last minute. So originally, I'll be honest with you, I was going to be going to say that an Irish fighter being the A final of a PFL tournament, be a European or world. But I thought it'd be a bit, I don't know if it was bold. I didn't think it was bold enough. So I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go with 3 of the old guard, or let's say the legends of Irish MMA, are going to return and compete this year.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, now you're talking.
So who are we talking about the old guard?
So the same generation where Chris Fields and them would have been competing. So 3 of them. So let's say Chris Fields. I'm trying to think of them now. But
Phil
I think
Peter, you never know he could come back.
There you go. That's who I had that in my head as well. Kieran Davern teased it during his interview with Ian before. You've got Ali McLean as well. He obviously fought last year, but I think he could fight again. There's a few options.
Andy Young. Obviously, Andy was going to come back last year as well. He'd be another good guy to throw in the mix. Hopefully, I'm sure he's well on the way to recovery now after his horrible injury. But it'd be interesting to see if he's kind of going to try and come back into the mix. It's a very good call, Caoilte. It's a good call.
I'd love it.
My second bold prediction is that we are going to see 2 Irish world champions crowned in mixed martial arts in 2023. So if I was to include the promotions, and I'll include it for the sake of it, UFC, Bellator, PFL, Cage Warriors, Invicta, all those big, we'll kind of close that bracket to make it a little bit bolder. I think we're going to see, I want to say, maybe I'll make it even a little bit bolder, at least 2 champions crowned within Irish MMA in the world stage. Bold prediction. What are your thoughts, lads? Just hands on faces here.
I like it. Well, I think I need to readjust my next one now.
Oh no! Oh no!
No! It's not the same. But I think I probably need to go bolder.
Go on.
I like that. I think that's possible as well.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Considering the layout, and I think Bellator there's a real possibility there that you've got the likes of Pedro Carvalho's right up there in the featherweight division, Carl Moore, Sinead, loads of people who could be contending.
Are we going to, if one of the, like Caoilte said, if one of the Irish fighters win any of the PFL brackets, are we going to count that as a win for me? Or am I going to get that from you? Perfect. I love it, guys. Appreciate that, lads. Appreciate that. Andy, I hope I didn't steal anything or mess it up too much. What's number 3?
What my number 3 was maybe it's not bold enough, but I had an Irish fighter wins the PFL European Series. But do you know what? We'll go bold. Let's say 2 Irish fighters win the PFL European Series.
I love it.
I love it.
Nice. That's a good one. Caoilte, your last one, please.
I've been racking my brain about this one, so I'm going to go amateur for this one. All right. So Ireland are going to, not even that bold, this one, but Ireland are going to have at least 1 gold medalist at both the World and European Championships, and one of those athletes will have an undefeated year. Nice. I was going to say gold at Super Cup, but I don't even know if that's happening. So
yeah, no, that's a fair. But we know the Worlds and the Euros are definitely happening anyway, so that's a good 2 avenues as well. Nice one, a goal prediction, and the boldest of bold predictions for me to finalize our bold predictions for 2023. I'm going to go with an Irish fighter to win the Ultimate Fighter competition this year. That's it.
Ooh.
So I don't even know.
Still a thing.
That is still a thing, believe you me. Yeah, it's not one that I look at too much really anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, my prediction.
You have some insider knowledge you're not telling us.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I'll just put it to you that way. An Irish fighter to win the Ultimate Fighter in 2023 is my last bold prediction. Without giving away or saying too much, I guess. I'm not privy to too much information, but I mean, it's an avenue. I'm not sure what weight classes they are, but it's a good avenue for Irish fighters. Like I said, tough is not what it used to be anymore. And that's not to disparage. Like you used to have more experienced guys going into the tough house to kind of that have already been progressed. But tough has kind of developed a lot more for prospects to come in, and the way they look at it is where Dana White's Contender Series is now kind of like maybe your more established professionals, whereas tough is given the avenue to kind of prospects coming in as well. So and there's lots of Irish
more direct route as well. Like it's like you win one fight, potentially you're in.
And and there's lots of Irish prospects across all weight classes as well. Like, I don't know. Ask me when the next. I know it'll be a tough series this year. Ask me when it is. I don't know. Ask me what weight classes they're going to be. I don't know either. That's why it's a bold prediction. But that's what I'm going to say. An Irish fighter to win the Ultimate Fighter competition in 2023 is my last bold prediction.
I hope all of these come true except for the one negative one that I had. But yeah,
that's it.
Some solid bold predictions, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It'd be great. We'd have a hell of a lot of conversations and a lot of bragging if some of those come through as well. So that's it, guys. That wraps us up for episode 24 of the Auld Triangle. We're back with a bang in 2023. Thanks to the two lads, Andy and Caoilte, for joining me as always. Thanks to Keith. Thanks to Kieran for joining us for our first guest of 2022. We're planning some big things. We're planning some big guests, and we're hoping for some big moments in Irish MMA in 2023. And I'm sure that we're going to get them as well. As always, we thank the listeners and everybody who subscribes to the channel.
If you could help us to kick off this year, give us an L5-star rating, please. It would really, really help. Just share with your mates, all that crack. We want to grow the podcast in 2023. We want to continue having the crack, looking at Irish MMA and following all the great success that I'm sure our Irish competitors will have this year. But yeah, if you can help us out, we will give you the best product we possibly can.
Absolutely. Very well said, Andy. And you can catch us on all platforms on your podcast networks, wherever you get them, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get them, SoundCloud as well. Wherever you find your podcast, we will be there. We always appreciate some good positive feedback. And also catch us on here on the SevereMMA YouTube channel as well. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we shall be back again in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of the Auld Triangle. Thank you all for listening in again today. It's great to be back for 2023. Happy New Year for you. We're really excited about Irish MMA in 2023, and we cannot wait to bring you this podcast every couple of weeks. Caoilte, see us out, my friend.